Chapter 282. On the seventh day of entering the small cultivation grotto heaven. Break! Splash! The small lake with a diameter of 3,000 feet was split into two by Chunhao's sword. Under the mysterious and sharp sword light, the entire lake was forcibly split into two distinct pieces. However, it only lasted for a short 2 seconds before it was broken by the crazily spinning vortex, and the two pieces merged into one again. Phew! Chunhao let out a long breath. His eyes shone with joy as he thought to himself, the solitary sword technique, platinum sky-splitting slash, and space attribute mystery have merged into one. The power of this sword is 5 times stronger than the pure platinum sky-splitting slash. I used it skillfully and used less than 1/6 of the energy. This means that even in the outside world, I can still use 6 sword moves. It's better to practice here. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time. Next level. Whoosh! Chunhao turned into a ray of light and appeared in the small lake thousands of feet below. If he had enough time, Chunhao would not have entered the next level so quickly. However, the small cultivation grotto heaven only had a month's time. If he wanted to get the most out of it, Chunhao could only challenge the second level, which was more powerful. Splash, splash. Boom, 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 the 1,000-foot waterfall flowed down from the top of the mountain. Its aura alone was many times stronger than the small lake at the top of the mountain. The outer sky waterfall of the star-picking sect could not be compared to this. The terrifying vortexes were filled with endless power, as if they could devour everything. With just a glance, Chunhao discovered that this level was much stronger than the first level, whether it was the realm of the space attribute's true essence or the way it operated. Puff! Taking a deep breath, Chunhao dived into the lake naked. The space attribute mystery at the peak of the initial level. The moment he floated in the whirlpool like a rootless duckweed, Chunhao was sure that the space attribute mystery contained in this lake was much stronger than the first level. The power and mystery contained in the whirlpool were also more terrifying. However, with the experience of the first floor, the pressure on Chunhao was not as terrifying as Chunhao had imagined. It seems like the time limit of the cultivation grotto heaven is quite reasonable. Everything was difficult at the beginning, and only the first level required the most time. Passing through all 9 levels was not difficult at all. Furthermore, the profound mysteries of the space attribute contained within it should be limited by the number of levels. Otherwise, no matter how talented one is, it would be difficult for one to pass through all 9 levels. Chunhao immersed himself in the comprehension and operation of the vortex and began to comprehend once again. Brother Yu, it's done. On the 27th day after Chunhao and Chen Shui stepped into the miniature grotto heaven, 5 figures gathered together. They were none other than Yu, Chengfeng, and Han Ji from the Southern Sea Archipelago. At this moment, Han Ji had a confident smile on his face as he said, "Everything within 1,000 feet is under my array. As long as that woman comes out, she will definitely fall into my array. If Jian Wufei and the other 2 come over, they will not be an exception." Brother Yu, you can sense it. Hearing Han Ji's words, Yu Chengfeng and the other 3 immediately released their senses. A moment later, Yu Chengfeng's face revealed a look of praise as he said, "Not bad. Even with my senses, I can't sense any aura at all. Brother Han, you are indeed a little divine armament. Brother Yu, you flatter me. This array talent is only a small matter compared to my talent. It's not worth mentioning," Han Ji said without hesitation. He was not being humble, but speaking the truth. In less than a month's time in Sky City, although they did not enter the miniature grotto heaven, the strength of the 5 of them had increased by quite a bit. Han Ji originally thought that his improvement was great, but when he sensed Yu Chengfeng's aura, he realized that he was nothing. Although Yu Chengfeng's half-step nascent soul cultivation level did not increase at all, his entire aura had become sharper. The murderous intent that he unconsciously let out made Han Ji and the others tremble in fear. One had to know that they were all top geniuses and their cultivation level was 1 level higher than Yu Chengfeng's. What did this mean? It meant that Yu Chengfeng, who was half-step nascent soul, could easily kill them. This kind of killing was not something that normal cultivators could do. Gasp! Boom! On the 27th day, a few hundred miles away from Yu Chengfeng and the others, a mountain with a diameter of 1,000 feet was suddenly cut in half by a bright sword ray. The moment it was cut in half, there was only a slight sound of something breaking through the air. The entire mountain only sank down a few centimeters. But then, the top half of the mountain exploded with a loud boom. The sky was filled with rocks and debris. Like a swarm of locusts, they contained the power to destroy the heavens and the earth as they shot into the sky. Impressive. A figure who had just arrived was extremely shocked as he stared at Jian Wufei, who was a few hundred feet away. His heart was filled with shock. This figure was Liao Guangye. Gasp! Liao Guangye instantly flew to Jian Wufei's side and stared at the smooth surface of the mountain that had been cut in half. His voice was filled with shock as he said, "Wufei, you have cultivated the 4th level of the Mountain River Sword technique. Peak of the 4th level." Jian Wufei slowly sheathed her sword and said coldly. Her beautiful face shone with a hint of pride. "This city in the sky is indeed a holy land for cultivation. It's beyond my imagination. Not only have I cultivated the Mountain River Sword technique to the peak of the 4th level, my Mountain River Sword technique has also reached the peak of the early stage of the Great Completion. Now, it doesn't matter if Liao Guangye and Jian Wufei are here or not. I alone am enough, but just in case, I'll bring them along." Jian Wufei thought to herself. Thinking about Yu Chengfeng's terrifying attacks, she was not sure how much Yu Chengfeng had improved in this month. Not long after, another cultivator rushed over as well. "Let's go," Jian Wufei said and flew up. "Hide your aura. This time, we have to make sure nothing goes wrong. It'll be best if we can kill Yu Chengfeng and the others first. Then, we just have to deal with that woman from the eastern continent. Plus, they definitely know that we won't give up. Maybe they're already waiting for us." Wait. When the 3 of them were dozens of miles away from the gate, they saw Yu Chengfeng and the others from afar. This caused Jian Wufei to stop. "What's wrong?" Liao Guangye and Jian Wufei asked in confusion. "It's a little strange. Yu Chengfeng's battle power is about the same as mine. He shouldn't be so brazen. Otherwise, what happened last time might happen again, and that woman escaped. If I were him, I would definitely hide my tracks. It would be best if he could kill me in one fell swoop," Jian Wufei said with a frown. She came from an ordinary background and could be said to be a nobody at the bottom of the food chain. To be able to reach her current position, she had experienced countless life and death situations. She had experience and survival skills that other disciples did not have. Her survival skills were definitely not something an ordinary person could compare to. "Wufei, you mean there's a trap?" Liao Guangye said with a frown. Swordsman Wu Fei frowned and nodded. "How can this trick fool me? You guys just wait here. I'll go check it out and make a decision." Hiss. As Jian Wufei spoke, her aura completely disappeared in front of the 2 of them. Her entire body seemed to have turned into a river. Evidently, she had used the River Mountain Sword Dao's special ability. She was the River Mountain, and the River Mountain was her. Although they could see her figure, they could no longer sense her aura. If she still hasn't come out, Jian Wufei must have seen through something. Whatever, I don't believe that she can still hold back when that pretty girl comes out. We'll just take her down then. On the 30th day, seeing that the time of the small cultivation cave was getting closer and closer, and Jian Wufei and the others still had not appeared, Yu Chengfeng said casually, "Walla walla, rumble rumble." Inside the cave in the small lake at the foot of the mountain, Chun Hao stood right under the waterfall with his upper body bared. His body withstood the waterfall that was 90,000 feet high. His streamlined muscles glowed with a sparkling, blood-red luster. From Chun Hao's expression, one could tell that the pressure he was withstanding right now was unimaginable to ordinary people. Chun Shui, who had already completed the 9 tests and raised her space element to the early stage of the Great Completion stage, stood by the lake and stared at Chun Hao. Her eyes were filled with shock. Only now did she truly understand how monstrous Chun Hao was. He was not someone she could compare to. Whether it was comprehension or cultivation talent, he was much higher than her, especially his physical body talent. It was at an unimaginable level. Who could withstand a waterfall 90,000 feet tall? Not to mention the high density of a spirit spring. Even normal water was enough to kill a peak Golden Core realm expert. As for Chun Hao, he had actually been cultivating under the waterfall for an entire day. Puff! Finally, Chun Hao, whose body seemed to be emitting a bloody light, could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Immediately, his figure flashed and flew out of the waterfall. He came to Chen Shui's side as if nothing had happened and said, "Finished." "Yes. Why did you leave it for me?" Chen Shui looked at the shirtless Chun Hao and asked. She was already a little used to it. At the 8th stage, Chun Hao had already surpassed her and entered the last stage first. But Chun Hao clearly comprehended the mystery of the pool water, but he did not go to the bottom of the lake to check. It's the same whoever gets it. I was in a hurry to cultivate, so how could I care so much? What did you get? Chen Hao asked curiously. A high-grade spirit artifact sword that contains the law of space. The name of the sword is Sky Smasher, and a heaven-class high-grade sword technique. Sky Smasher sword technique and 100 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. Chen Shui said as she took out the sword technique, and 100 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. The sword is yours. I will cultivate the sword technique first, then I will pass it to you. As for the supreme-grade primordial crystal stones, let's split it in half, okay? Chen Hao said directly after glancing at it. No, I can have the sword, but you can have the supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. I don't lack primordial crystal stones. As for the sword technique, we will do as you say. Your comprehension is a little better than mine. Chen Shui said. Okay, there's still 2 more hours before we have to leave. Unfortunately, I can't take this spirit spring with me. Let's recover to our best condition first and prepare for battle. I can't wait any longer. Chun Hao put away the top-grade primal crystal stones and the secret technique Jade slip into his storage space without hesitation, and his peerlessly handsome face flickered with a wisp of excitement and faint arrogance as he spoke. After he finished speaking, he dived into the lake again. Second update. Today is the second update. I have something to do tonight. Everyone, don't worry about Dark Mountain not paying back the debt. Within a month, Dark Mountain will definitely pay back the debt. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 283. Then, Chun Shui jumped into the lake as well. She knew that once they walked out of the grotto heaven, they would face an unavoidable battle. Their opponents were all geniuses from the southern sea islands and the western continent. One side had 5 people, the other side had 3 people. She and Chun Hao were only 2 people. Even though the 2 of them had improved a lot in this month, it was still unknown if they could win. Also, because they entered the grotto heaven, they might face the combined attacks of their opponents. Now that I've reached the peak of the early nascent soul stage, my mastery of the space element has reached the peak of the early nascent soul stage, and my mastery of the chaotic thunder sword has reached the 5th level sky-piercing thunder. With the addition of the sky-shattering sword, I'll be able to infuse the space element into it, and its power will definitely be doubled. With this kind of strength, I should have a 70% chance of defeating Jian Wufei. Chen Shui thought to herself. She had seen Jian Wufei and Yu Chengfeng's terrifying battle strength. Even though the 2 of them were half a step away from the nascent soul realm, Jian Wufei had already condensed her elemental sword intent. As for Yu Chengfeng, his folding fan was even more shocking. It was obvious that he had reached the peak of the initial stage of the wind element. No matter who it was, the 2 of them were not easy to deal with. Plus, they had partners who were equally terrifying. Even though the others were weaker than Jian Wufei and Yu Chengfeng, they were all top geniuses. In a battle of life and death, no one could be sure how strong they would be, especially the super geniuses from the southern sea islands. Most of them had ancient bloodlines. No matter how Chen Shui thought about it, she didn't think that she and Chun Hao had a high chance of winning. The only thing she was sure of was that with their state of mind and their understanding of the space element, it wouldn't be hard for them to survive. That was enough. Half an hour later, Chun Hao and Chun Shui stepped out of the lake at the same time. Chun Shui saw the excitement and confidence on Chun Hao's face and couldn't help but ask, "Chun Hao, how confident are you?" "I said they will all die. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng are very strong." Jian Wufei had comprehended an elemental sword Dao, and her cultivation level was very high. One of them has comprehended the quintessence of the wind attribute to the pinnacle of initial mastery, and his body contains the legacy of the ancient era's bloodline. It's still unclear how strong he is. Just these two alone are already difficult for us to kill, let alone the other 5. Indeed, the attacks of those two fellows were indeed very strong. In a month's time in Sky City, he might even be able to improve. However, I'm a dead person now. Chun Hao looked at Chun Shui, the corners of his mouth slightly raised as he spoke. If Chun Hao had a 10% chance of success, he would dare to try, let alone a 100% chance of success. However, this did not mean that Chun Hao would stupidly fight against 8 super geniuses with just the 2 of them. As long as he could make use of all the factors that were beneficial to the battle, he would not hesitate to use them. You mean a sneak attack? What Chun Shui was most worried about was that the arrogant Chun Hao would fight the other party openly. But now, seeing the expression on Chun Hao's face, Chun Shui heaved a sigh of relief. This Chun Hao is undoubtedly the most terrifying Chun Hao. That's right. They definitely think that I'm dead. When we go out later, I'll conceal myself, and you'll appear in front of them. Okay, they're coming out. Don't activate the array for now. Wait for Jian Wufei and the other 2 to attack. Yu Qingfeng said confidently. In these 2 days, he had already investigated. Although he did not find Jian Wufei and the other 2, he was certain that the 3 of them were waiting nearby. He did not believe that Jian Wufei would be able to hold back when he took down Chun Shui. Idiot! What Yu Qingfeng and the others did not expect was that even though their conversation was limited to a small area, it still did not escape Jian Wufei's ears. They also did not expect Jian Wufei to be within a few hundred feet of them. The world only knows that my Mountain River Sword technique is peerless, but they don't know that the Mountain River Sword technique's strongest point is concealment. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm limited by my cultivation level, it would be easy for me to kill you all, Jian Wufei thought. She was only half-step nascent soul. Although the Mountain River Sword technique's concealment effect was strong, she did not dare to get too close. After all, she was only concealing her aura and not her body. In this area that was already empty, there was nowhere to hide. Otherwise, she would have attacked already. I wonder what kind of expression you'll have when I break your array. Jian Wufei's beautiful face revealed a trace of evil and smugness. She was not proficient in arrays, but before it was activated, she could still break it. Any array formation needed energy crystals to operate. Hanji's array was no exception. Although the auras of the energy crystals were all hidden, it wasn't difficult for Jian Wufei to dig them out since she knew of the existence of the array formation. Moreover, she had already finished this task a day ago. She just did not destroy it. This was because she knew that if she destroyed any of the energy crystals, Hanji, who had set up the array, would notice. So, she could only attack when Chun Shui was about to come out of the grotto heaven. Otherwise, after the other party captured Chun Shui, it would be difficult to snatch the treasure from Yu Qingfeng's hands. This was because she could feel that Yu Qingfeng's strength had increased by quite a bit. Jian Wufei was not sure if she could defeat him. If he wanted to escape after getting the treasure, she would not be able to stop him. Time was ticking by. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng were both determined to win. However, they did not consider Chun Hao and Chun Shui. Instead, they saw each other as their biggest opponents. In their eyes, Chun Shui was a lamb destined to be slaughtered. The only thing that mattered was who could obtain it. SSSS, SSSS, SSSS. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng's gazes locked onto where the door to the grotto heaven appeared, and their auras were released without restraint. Finally, there was a violent ripple in the air. The door to the grotto heaven was about to open. Chen Shui was about to be ejected. Not good. What shocked Yu Qingfeng and the others was that at this moment, Han Ji's expression suddenly changed. What's wrong? Yu Qingfeng asked with a frown. Ha! At this moment, Jian Wufei's proud laughter suddenly sounded. Accompanied by a terrifying aura, her figure appeared in front of Yu Qingfeng and the others. Whoosh whoosh. Meanwhile, Liao Guangye and the other disciple were flying toward them from 1,000 zhang away at a shocking pace. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying energy storm erupted in the air as the door to the grotto heaven opened. Kill! Jian Wufei did not hesitate. She stabbed out with her sword and attacked Yu Qingfeng. The brilliant sword light contained a terrifying sword intent. There was no other way. Yu Qingfeng and the others had already gathered near the door to the grotto heaven. She could not rob Chen Shui immediately. Therefore, the only thing she could do was to stop Yu Qingfeng and the others. Bitch, you think you can stop me? Break for me. Boom! With a wave of his fan, 1,000-foot-long wind dragon containing a monstrous aura flew towards Jian Wufei's terrifying attack. The four of you, quickly take down that girl. At the same time, Yu Qingfeng ordered. Yu Qingfeng had no choice. Jian Wufei's sword contained a power that he had to deal with all his strength. He had no time to deal with Chen Shui. Brother, you don't worry. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Han Ji and the others instantly charged towards Chen Shui, who had just appeared. At this moment, Liao Guangye and the other disciple also charged over and sent out their strongest attacks towards the four of them. Liao Guangye and the other disciple did the same as Jian Wufei and stopped the four of them from approaching Chen Shui. The scene uncontrollably returned to the scene before Chen Shui, and Chen Hao stepped into the grotto heaven. Boom, boom, boom. It was also at this moment that the entire space began to tremble violently and a mysterious aura drifted over. The 1-month spatial barrier of Sky City had officially been opened, which also meant that all the barriers that were divided into regions according to strength and potential no longer existed. The true danger of the trial was about to begin. Han Ji, the three of you block those two for me. I'll take down this woman. The barrier has already opened. If more experts come, it will be even more difficult. We have to hurry. Among the 5 disciples of the Southern Sea Islands, the one whose strength was second only to Yu Qingfeng said sternly to Han Ji and the others. This guy was called Shang Wanyang. Okay. Han Ji and the others didn't hesitate and directly influenced Liao Guangye and the other disciple. They all knew that Shang Wanyang was right. With their talent, battle strength, and potential, they were definitely not far away from the late nascent soul stage experts, or even the peak of the late nascent soul stage. The main reason they were able to come here was because of their potential. Once some mid or late nascent soul stage experts came, it would undoubtedly be even more difficult to obtain the treasures on Chen Shui. No way. Chen Hao, who had merged with the world, was hiding beside Chen Shui and was a little shocked. Chen Shui also had a strange expression. They originally thought that they would have to face a terrifying attack as soon as they came out. They didn't expect that Yu Qingfeng and Jian Wufei's group would be unharmed and would be in a fierce battle again. They're underestimating us. Huh? Chen Hao said to Chen Shui through voice transmission. Let's end this quickly. We have to leave here before the other experts come. Chen Shui said through voice transmission. Her aura instantly became extremely cold. However, she didn't use the sky-shattering sword. Moreover, it didn't seem to be very powerful. Ha! Little girl, do you still want to resist? Just give up, and you won't have to suffer any physical pain. If brother you didn't choose you, I, Shang Wanyang, could kill you with one move. Capture her. Shang Wanyang said arrogantly. His strength was second only to Yu Qingfeng, and he sensed the fluctuation of Chen Shui's aura. He was absolutely confident that he could capture Chen Shui alive. First update. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it on Qidian. Come. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 284. Hiss. Shang Wanyang condensed a true essence giant hand with a radius of 30 meters and directly covered Chen Shui. This true essence giant hand not only contained 100% of Shangwan Yang's strength, but also the aura of an ancient bloodline. The moment it was released, the energy of heaven and earth madly gathered towards the giant hand. Chun Shui could clearly feel the terrifying pressure contained in the giant hand. Obviously, although Shangwan Yang was arrogant, he was not careless at all. Although Chun Shui's aura was not strong, at this critical moment, he had to do his best to subdue Chun Shui as quickly as possible. Only by taking Chun Shui's treasures could he be at ease. At that time, he could attack or retreat. It was not too important whether he could kill the 3 people from the Western continent or not. My dragon-capturing giant handprint is a heaven-level technique. In this sky city, it can mobilize more spiritual energy of heaven and earth. With your strength, it's useless to resist. This dragon-capturing giant handprint was not a simple offensive technique. Under normal circumstances, it was used by powerful people to capture weak opponents alive. It could mobilize the energy of heaven and earth for one's own use. Although Shangwan Yang felt that Chun Shui's aura was not as strong as his, before he used the dragon-capturing giant handprint, he did not expect to subdue Chun Shui in one move. However, at this moment, to his surprise, the extremely rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Sky City actually allowed his dragon-capturing giant handprint to exert twice the power of the outside world. Thunderclap, ninth heaven, break. Clang. Crack. Seeing that the true essence giant hand was only 30 meters away from her and had firmly locked on her aura, Chun Shui, who seemed to be weak, suddenly shouted and pulled out her sword in one breath. The high-grade spiritual weapon, the sky-shattering sword, suddenly emitted thousands of rays of light, and the 4th level of the chaos sword technique, the Thunderclap, ninth heaven, was released. Rumble. When the true essence giant hand and the thunderous sword light met, there was a terrifying roar, and the true essence giant hand and the thunderous sword light disappeared at the same time. Chun Shui, who was dressed in a blue dress, had a cold light in her eyes. Her body swayed, and she raised her sword at a moderate speed and rushed towards Shangwan Yang. At the same time, Chun Shui's body exuded a kind of fleeting spatial aura, as if she could break through space at any time, making it impossible to lock onto her. A high-grade spiritual weapon? Good. I didn't expect you to be able to break my dragon-capturing giant handprint. Good timing. Do you think you can hide the true essence of the space attribute from me? Shangwan Yang instantly released his mind power to the maximum and fixed his eyes on Chun Shui. He was well aware that Chun Shui, who had become one with his sword and carried a spatial attribute aura, would very likely change his trajectory and deliver a fatal blow the moment he got close to him. Moreover, Chun Shui had a high-grade spirit sword in her possession. How could he dare to be careless? Die! Suddenly, when Chun Shui was still several hundred feet away from him, she actually lightly shook the sky-shattering sword, sending out an attack that could not be considered anything at all. At this moment, Shangwan Yang didn't feel any threat at all, but his intuition of danger, which was honed in life-or-death situations, made his hair stand on end. Without any hesitation, he gathered all his strength and struck out with his palm. He even stopped defending himself. Anyway, Chun Shui was right in front of him, so he could beat her back first. However, the moment Shangwan Yang withdrew his protective genuine essence and struck out with his palm, a silent sword light pierced through his head without any warning. He didn't even have time to scream. Hiss! At the same time, Chun Shui's figure suddenly disappeared in the void. What? How is that possible? Although Yu Chengfeng and the others were fighting, they were all paying attention to Chun Shui, especially Jian Wufei. At this moment, they were at a disadvantage because of the lack of manpower. Therefore, when Shangwan Yang tried to capture Chun Shui alone, she was already prepared. Once Shangwan Yang succeeded, she would not hesitate to take a blow from Yu Chengfeng to kill him. Yu Chengfeng naturally understood the situation. He exerted his cultivation to the maximum to hold back Jian Wufei, who was very powerful. As long as Shangwan Yang succeeded, they were destined to win. However, they had never thought that it would end like this. What surprised them more was that Shang Wanyang's death was not caused by Chen Shui at all. Even though they did not catch Chen Hao's aura, Chen Hao still exposed his existence when he killed Shang Wanyang. This guy is actually still alive. We can't let them escape. At this moment, Jian Wufei and Yu Chengfeng tacitly avoided each other. Their figures flashed, and they suddenly dashed out in two different directions. Before they arrived, their terrifying will and strong, killing intent covered the sky and the earth. Hiss! Hiss! Two strange spatial fluctuations as fast as lightning dashed towards Liao Guangye, Han Ji, and the others who were also shocked and had stopped fighting. Heavenly thunder, platinum sky-splitting cut. Although Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei were fast, Chen Hao and Qin Shui were even faster, especially Qin Shui, who had comprehended the space property to the peak of the first stage of the Greater Mastery. It was as if she had teleported. She was even faster than Chen Hao. She appeared above Han Ji and performed the 5th level of the Chaotic Thunder Sword. As for Chen Hao, he performed his most powerful attack, the Platinum Sky-Splitting Cut. Crack! Hiss! Two completely different sounds suddenly appeared while Han Ji, Liao Guangye, and the others were still in shock. One of them was like a heavenly thunder that contained destructive power. Han Ji, who was the weakest in the group, did not have time to resist at all. He could not resist at all and was directly smashed into pieces. On the other hand, Chen Hao's platinum sky-splitting cut seemed to have transcended the restraints of space. No one could stop it or resist it. Fast, ruthless, sharp, condensed. In an instant, it caused the world to lose its color. All sounds seemed to disappear, and time seemed to stop. The sword light, that was about 300 feet long, was like a waterfall that turned into a light curtain that cut through everything in the world. Puff! 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 Up! Liao Guangye let out a terrified scream. He did not have time to resist at all. He could only watch as his headless body fell down and blood spurted out. He simply could not believe that this was real. At the same time, one of the other two was cut in half at the waist, and the other was cut in half at the heart. The guy who was cut in half at the heart only let out a scream before he stopped moving. As for the guy who was cut in half at the waist, he continued to scream miserably. I can't die, I can't die. I don't want to die. Brother Yu, save me, kid. Tell me your name. Tell me, who are you in the Yuan Gate? Yu Chengfeng looked at Chen Hao, who was standing proudly without hiding his tracks. His face was so twisted that it no longer resembled a human's as he gritted his teeth and spoke. Jian Wufei's brows were tightly furrowed. She tightly gripped the sword in her hand. Her gaze was extremely serious as she stared coldly at Chen Hao. She was clearly much calmer than Yu Chengfeng. Her terrifying aura was still locked onto Chen Hao and Chen Shui's aura. She transmitted her voice, Yu Chengfeng, let's kill them together and split the loot equally. How about it? This kid was able to kill those pieces of trash with one strike. Although he caught them off guard, he is definitely not weaker than us. He might even have a trump card. That woman is not weak either. Okay. Yu Chengfeng's eyes flashed with a strong sense of viciousness as he spoke. At this point, his pride as the #1 inner sect disciple of the Southern Sea Islands had been crushed by Jian Wufei. It was not that Jian Wufei was stronger than him, but that the geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands were not something that the Western and Eastern continents could compare to. However, Jian Wufei was not inferior to him at all, and this Chen Hao, who he thought was dead for sure, had just displayed an attack that even he had to be careful of. Therefore, he had no choice but to join forces with Jian Wufei. In his opinion, Chen Hao is definitely a super genius of the Eastern continent's strongest sect, the Yuan Gate. To be able to survive, he naturally had to have a sacred healing medicine. Don't say it. Chen Shui hurriedly transmitted her voice to Chen how to stop him. She was very clear that Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei were both top geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands and the Western continent. In Sky City, there were definitely many peak late nascent soul realm and even half-step incarnation realm senior brothers and sisters of the same sect. Moreover, it was very likely that they had communication talismans between them. Once the other party knew their names, they would most likely be hunted down endlessly. However, Chen Hao smiled slightly. After glancing at Qin Shui, he proudly said, Yuan Gate? Sorry, I have nothing to do with the Yuan Gate. Seeing that you are about to die, I don't mind telling you my name. I am Chen Hao, merely a disciple of a third-rank sect in the Eastern continent. Ha! Qin Shui frowned slightly and didn't say anything else. Since Chen Hao did this, he naturally believed in his own strength. Moreover, doing this would undoubtedly be beneficial to his elusive fortune. Moreover, he would be able to fight to his heart's content without leaving any inner demons. This was indeed the case. Chen Hao had been cultivating crazily for a month. Whether it was his strength or his cultivation level, Chen Hao had improved tremendously. Just now, he had killed 3 people with a single slash, which made him feel very good. Under the rising battle intent, the arrogance in his bones completely exploded. His laughter was like thunder from the 9 heavens, shaking the surroundings. His entire mood was much more carefree. The power of the platinum sky splitting slash also gave him a clearer understanding of it. The slash just now was just a pure platinum sky splitting slash, without any spatial mysteries. Moreover, he had only used 80% of his strength. Although it still consumed a lot of energy, it wouldn't be a problem to use it 10 more times. When the time comes, if he combined the flaws of the solitary sword technique and spatial mysteries, how powerful would it be? At this point, if he still wanted to hide, he wouldn't be Chen Hao. Chen Hao was looking forward to it. What made Chen Hao even happier was that he finally understood his Tao and the direction he should work towards in the future. Just based on this point alone, even if his strength didn't increase, this trial in Sky City was worth it. Chen Hao, you're Chen Hao, the one who ranked 6th in the test. When Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei heard Chen Hao's name, they both revealed a trace of shock. What, are you scared? Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly as he stared at the two of them. His expression and tone were filled with naked contempt and disdain. I, Yu Chengfeng, have indeed underestimated you. However, you're not worthy of making me, Yu Chengfeng, scared. Yu Chengfeng gritted his teeth. Chen Hao's expression and tone at this moment should be Yu Chengfeng's. But today, someone dared to treat him like this. And it was someone younger than him. How could he tolerate this? Cut the crap. Leave the woman to me. After I kill this woman, we'll work together to kill him. We can't let them escape. Jian Wufei said viciously. As she spoke, she suddenly attacked like a poisonous snake. Second update. Each chapter is 3,000 words. Dark Mountain won't shrink from paying his debt. Also, Dark Mountain said that he would pay it all in a month, not the end of this month. To be precise, he will pay it all around the 17th of next month. Dark Mountain will continue to work hard. There will be a third update tonight. Thank you, everyone. Please support Dark Mountain. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 285. Jian Wufei slashed out with her sword, and the brilliant sword light locked on Chen Shui as it tore through the void. At the same time, Yu Chengfeng hesitated for a moment before attacking violently. His body seemed to transform into a wind dragon as he charged towards Chen Hao and Jian Wufei. I'll deal with this woman. Sensing the aura of the two, Chen Hao's battle-intense soared as he suddenly sent a voice transmission to Qin Shui. As he spoke, he raised his sword to meet Jian Wufei. The reason why Chen Hao did this was not because Jian Wufei was stronger than Yu Chengfeng, but because he could sense that Jian Wufei's Mountain River Sword Dao was more dangerous and fierce. Especially the sword intent that it contained, it was extremely terrifying. If he was not careful, he could cause fatal damage to Qin Shui. As for the more violent Yu Chengfeng, he was more suitable for Chen Shui, who specialized in strange attacks. All right, hiss, Chen Shui replied as her body flashed. She unleashed the power of the space attribute to the extreme as she charged towards Yu Chengfeng with lightning speed. Your opponent is me. Swoosh! Chen Hao casually slashed out with his sword and blocked Jian Wufei's sword light as he charged towards Jian Wufei. Ha ha! That's great. Little girl, it would be a pity to kill you. It's not too late to surrender. Yu Chengfeng, now is not the time to lust after beauty. This kid is hard to deal with. Let's end this quickly. When Yu Chengfeng saw that Chen Hao and Chen Shui had swapped opponents, he was overjoyed. When he heard that Jian Wufei had chosen to kill Chen Shui first, he was a little conflicted. After all, a beauty like Chen Shui was rare. It would be a pity if she was killed just like that. Therefore, when he saw that Chen Hao was charging towards Jian Wufei and Chen Shui was charging towards him, he said excitedly. However, before he could finish, Jian Wufei's cold voice interrupted him. Jian Wufei knew that Chen Hao must be very strong, but she didn't think that Chen Hao would be able to easily sever her sword while that had locked onto Chen Shui. Don't worry, it's just a short while. Just don't let him escape. 10 moves. Within 10 moves, I will subdue this chick. Ha ha, Yu Chengfeng said arrogantly. At the same time, he opened his folding fan with a schwa sound and instantly started fighting with Chen Shui. Jian Wufei frowned. She had taken one step at a time. She had experienced countless life and death situations to reach her current position. Her calmness and survivability far surpassed that of ordinary people. She would never underestimate her opponent in any battle, especially when she truly fought Chen Hao. Even though they had only fought once, she could still sense how terrifying Chen Hao was. This feeling was not only because of his strength, but also because of Chen Hao's gaze that was as sharp as a sword, as well as his calm and collected aura that was as heavy as a mountain. This feeling was far more stressful than when she faced Yu Chengfeng. However, at this moment, she knew that it was impossible to control the lecherous Yu Chengfeng. With a cold snort, Jian Wufei's mind was completely immersed in the battle. A terrifying will of the sword emanated from her body and rushed towards Chen Hao. She slashed out with her sword and 2 rays of sword light appeared. What a strong will of the sword! Even Chen Hao, who was full of fighting spirit, couldn't help but praise her. The 2 rays of sword light that Jian Wufei shot out had completely different auras. One of them was heavy like a mountain and pressed down like Mount Tai, and it imperceptibly caused Chen Hao to arouse a feeling of powerlessness that was impossible to resist. It seemed as if he couldn't avoid it, and no matter how he resisted, he would be smashed into meat paste. On the other hand, the other was vast like an ocean and unfathomable, and it was like a continuous stream of furious waves that shook the heavens, wave after wave, and each wave was stronger than the last, and it was capable of drowning him at any moment. The only similarity was that the 2 rays of sword light were as fast as lightning. What was even more terrifying was that the 2 rays of sword light fused together and locked onto Chen Hao from all directions. Feeling the immense pressure, Chen Hao was shocked and excited at the same time. However, he didn't use brute force to break through. Instead, he immersed himself in the mysteries of his opponent's sword technique. His brain was spinning rapidly, and his powerful perception was fully displayed at this moment. Shua! He stabbed out with his sword and instantly attacked the weak point of the fusion of the 2 rays of sword light. It was also the weakest point of the will of the sword. He seemed to have easily broken through Jian Wufei's attack. Seeing Chen Hao easily break through her 2 layers of mountain and sea without using brute force, Jian Wufei's face revealed a trace of shock. Nobody knew better than her that although Chen Hao's attack seemed simple, if one didn't have great vision, great perception, and shocking courage, he wouldn't have dared to use so little strength to attack. If he wasn't careful, he would have been heavily injured. Yu Chengfeng used the same move to break through it with absolute strength. Chen Hao was originally in the advanced stage of the Golden Course stage. To be able to rank 6th in the test, he definitely has great overall abilities. He said that he was a disciple of the 3rd-rank sect. To be able to achieve what he has today, he must have experienced countless life and death situations. Such an opponent is even more terrifying than Yu Chengfeng. I can't let my guard down. Jian Wufei was truly shocked at this moment. However, even though she was shocked, she wasn't afraid at all. She didn't achieve what she had today through trickery. Constantly challenging her limits was her forte, Not to mention that she still had the ability to save her life. What was there to fear? Bitch, it seems like you want to die. Then I'll fulfill your wish. Boom. On the other side, Yu Chengfeng was both furious and shocked when he saw Chen Shui, who seemed to have blended into space, evading his 10 moves in a row. He immediately raised his strength to the limit. He couldn't understand how such a beautiful woman like Chen Shui could withstand his killing intent that even a mid-nascent soul stage expert would fear. What surprised him even more was that his wind element that had just reached the early stage of the greater success stage seemed to have met its nemesis under Chen Shui's spatial profundity. He was fast, but Chen Shui was faster. Moreover, she kept on fighting him. She made him unable to use his strength. If this continued, even if he used 100 or 1,000 moves, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Chen Shui. You're not worthy, Chen Shui said in a cold voice. After she finished speaking, she actually stopped fighting and directly attacked with her sword. The more Chen Shui fought, the more confident she became. Her opponent was only half a step away from the original level. Even though his physique and potential were extremely high, allowing Yu Chengfeng's qi to be more powerful than Chen Shui's, the difference wasn't that big. The only thing that affected Chen Shui was her opponent's chilling, killing intent. Luckily, Chen Shui had already understood the space element to the peak of the initial stage of the greater success stage. The space element was a powerful element that surpassed the 5 elements. Without time, space was king. Whether it was speed or profundity, it far surpassed the wind element. This allowed Chen Shui to be undefeatable. Of course, Chen Shui didn't know that if Yu Chengfeng wanted to kill her from the start, she would have been heavily injured. Sadly, Yu Chengfeng's lust killed her. To know that no matter how strong the killing intent was, without the intention to kill, it would lose its soul. How could it be strong? Now, even if Yu Chengfeng wanted to kill her, it was too late. Because the effect of killing intent was to kill with one strike. Then it would weaken, then it would be exhausted. Chen Shui had already gotten used to his killing intent. No matter how strong it was, it wouldn't have the desired effect. Ha! Is this the way of the sword? Bring it on. Let me see how strong a woman with a heart as vicious as a snake and scorpion is. Seeing Chen Shui's aura skyrocket, Chen Hao, who had been paying attention to Chen Shui all this time, praised her in his heart and relaxed completely. At this moment, he arrogantly laughed at Jian Wufei. You don't know what's good for you. Hiss, hiss. Jian Wufei suddenly thrust out her sword and spear. Originally, she had been holding back. After all, her cooperation with Yu Chengfeng was only temporary. If she and Chen Hao were to be seriously injured before Yu Chengfeng succeeded, then Yu Chengfeng wouldn't keep his promise and would kill her as well. But now, seeing that Yu Chengfeng couldn't suppress Chen Shui, she didn't dare to hold back anymore. Long-distance attacks could no longer satisfy her needs. Similarly, Chen Hao wasn't satisfied. In an instant, the two figures intertwined. Jian Wufei focused all of her energy and will of the sword Dao onto her sword. She slashed out again and again, each of her attacks aiming for the vitals of her enemies. She believed that Chen Hao would definitely not be able to catch her weakness in a close combat situation where she could unleash 100 swords in an instant. The Mountain River Sword technique was about using one strength to suppress others. It was domineering. Slash after slash. Every move was a strong attack. It was as if the entire world was in her hands. If they were on the same level, she would definitely be the one to win. Ding, ding, ding. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the sound of metal clashing and terrifying energy from the secret manual raged between the two of them. What shocked Chen Hao was that ever since he stepped into the world of cultivation, with the solitary sword technique in his hands, no one had ever been able to continuously attack him. After all, as long as he made a move, there would be a flaw. With a flaw, Chen Hao would be able to take the absolute initiative. But on Jian Wufei, there was an exception. Jian Wufei's strong attacks were like sparks, surpassing Chen Hao's reaction speed. Moreover, the terrifying sword intent caused Chen Hao to feel immense pressure. His mind and thoughts were greatly suppressed. Left with no choice, Chun Hao could only infuse the profoundness of the space attribute into the solitary sword art. Every time he swung out his sword, it was as if there was a vortex within it, using it to cause Jian Wufei's sword to deviate from its trajectory. Only then did he manage to deal with Jian Wufei's strong attacks. What Chun Hao didn't know was that Jian Wufei was even more shocked than him. In a situation where they didn't use their trump cards and fought in close combat, no one had ever been able to compete with her. Even Yu Qingfeng could only dodge. But Chun Hao, under her sharp, dense, and lightning-fast attacks, was able to hit her weak points 4 out of 5 times. What was even more shocking was that Chun Hao's every slash contained the space element's rotational force, swallowing her energy. It wasn't strange for the space element to be contained in a move that needed time to prepare, but to be able to contain it in a sword move at all times was too shocking. Third update, make up. Continue to work hard tomorrow. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 286. Boom. Jian Wufei released a move with all her might as she retreated. At the same time, her aura began to soar. At this point, Jian Wufei knew that if she wanted to take down Chun Hao, she would have to use her trump card. You are indeed very strong. You are the first person to force me, Jian Wufei, to this extent. You should be proud of yourself. Now, I will show you my true strength. Hiss! Jian Wufei's eyes flashed. As she spoke, her aura began to change strangely. It was as if she had merged with the heavens and earth. A thick and majestic aura began to emanate from her body. It was as if she had transformed into a mountain. She slowly rose into the air. Boom, boom, boom. All of the heaven and earth spiritual energy within a radius of 3,000 feet suddenly began to gather towards Jian Wufei's body at an astonishing speed. Even more astonishing was that the small mountain behind Jian Wufei suddenly began to collapse. Even the ground was ripped apart, and countless hard rocks of various sizes flew into the air as Jian Wufei slowly raised her sword, hovering behind her. Jian Wufei's clothes fluttered in the wind, and her expression was cold. An aura of absolute dominance spread out from her. Not to mention Chun Hao, who was bearing the brunt of it. Even Yu Qingfeng and Chen Shui, who were fighting not far away, were greatly affected. Yu Qingfeng and Chen Shui couldn't help but be distracted by the battle between Chun Hao and Jian Wufei. They both retreated and stopped fighting. At this point, even though Yu Qingfeng didn't want to admit it, he knew that if he wanted to take down Chen Shui, he wouldn't be able to do it in a short period of time. I didn't expect Jian Wufei to be so strong. Is this the 5th level of the Mountain River Sword Technique, Dancing the Mountains? It has to be, drawing upon the power of the heavens and earth, dancing the mountains and mountains for me to use and suppress everything. Impressive. However, Jian Wufei is clearly using a skill that is beyond her limits. After she kills that brat Chun Hao, she will definitely suffer a huge backlash. Yu Qingfeng stared at Jian Wufei, his heart filled with shock, but he was also secretly pleased. He was shocked at Jian Wufei's strength, but he was pleased because Jian Wufei's actions had undoubtedly given him the perfect opportunity. In his battle with Chen Shui, he had indeed done his best. However, he hadn't used his trump card at all. That was because he knew very well that his cooperation with Jian Wufei was nothing more than working with a wolf. The result he wanted to see the most was for Chun Hao and Jian Wufei to both be severely injured. Bring it on. Boom. Sensing the immense pressure from Jian Wufei, Chun Hao's deep black eyes flashed with a brilliant light. His blood boiled, and the arrogance and fighting spirit hidden deep within his bones completely erupted at this moment. His essence, energy, and spirit seemed to have materialized, turning into a straight line of smoke that soared into the sky. At the same time, Chun Hao gripped the 5-elemental sword tightly in his right hand and slowly raised it up. Every time he raised it up a bit, the aura around him would rise up a bit. When the tip of the sword was pointed at Jian Wufei, who was hovering in the air, His entire being emitted a sharp aura that seemed capable of piercing through the heavens. So strong. Yu Qingfeng was shocked beyond words. But then, his eyes became even more vicious. He thought to himself, this is even better. This Chen Hao's aura is actually on par with Jian Wufei's. Even if the two of them don't die in one move, they will lose their ability to fight. Later, when I use my trump card and heavily injure Chen Shui, I will be able to do whatever I want. He. Is this his limit? Unlike Yu Qingfeng, Chen Shui sensed the aura that Chen Hao was emitting. Her beautiful face revealed a trace of seriousness. However, it was only seriousness. In the small-sized grotto heaven, her understanding of Chen Hao had reached a certain level. Take this. Jian Wufei's aura had reached its peak. She was like a high and mighty king as she slashed out with her sword. Boom, 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 boom. Giant rocks covered the sky like locusts as they attacked Chen Hao. Every single one of them contained the terrifying will of the heavens and earth. Their speed was many times faster than the speed of sound. But what was even more shocking was that Jian Wufei had become one with her sword. After borrowing the power of the heavens and earth to attack with the giant rocks, her aura suddenly disappeared. Even her body disappeared from Chen Hao's eyes as she hid among the giant rocks. This was the true killing move. Even Chen Shui, who had absolute confidence in Chen Hao, had a change of expression at this moment. She had never thought that Jian Wufei's ultimate move would contain such a shocking stealth attack. This was her area of expertise. However, even with her superior soul perception, she couldn't lock onto Jian Wufei's aura. This was definitely dangerous. Similarly, Chen Hao was also shocked. At this moment, Chen Hao felt an unprecedented threat of death. I can't sense it. River Mountain Sword Dao. River Mountain Sword Dao. It contains the concept of mountains and earth, transforming into mountains and earth. So that's how it is. In that instant, Chen Hao's shocking comprehension ability understood the true power of Jian Wufei's River Mountain Sword Dao. Transforming into mountains and earth, she was mountains and earth was her. Between the layers of giant rocks, her aura had completely merged with them. Every boulder was her, and she was every boulder. To put it bluntly, the attack of the giant rocks was just a cover for her true killing move. She was too fast, and Chen Hao didn't have much time to think or comprehend. The only thing he could do was face her head on, and Chen Hao knew that he had to be even faster. At this moment, Chen Hao's mind was more focused than ever. With a loud shout, his sword swept out. Another sword swept out. Another sword swept out. Shwa, shwa, shwa. 3 consecutive swords, as fast as shooting stars. Every sword was a platinum heaven-splitting slash. Boom, 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 boom. The 3 swords seemed to come at the same time and contained a terrifying spatial vortex. The moment they collided with the giant rocks, there was a loud explosion that shook the heavens and earth. The giant rocks were directly turned to dust. Jian Wufei's figure suddenly appeared. Die! No one could describe how shocked Jian Wufei was at this moment. She originally thought that her sword, which surpassed her cultivation level, would definitely be able to kill Chen Hao. She didn't even need to use her one with a sword to attack. But she didn't think that Chen Hao would be able to instantly shatter her dancing mountains and earth spirit chi. In her estimation, with Chen Hao's strength, this was absolutely impossible. But Chen Hao did it. Consecutive killer moves. What kind of concept was this? At the very least, Jian Wufei had never seen or even heard of someone who was able to use such a move in succession. But Chen Hao instantly sent out 3 platinum heaven-splitting slashes, leaving her with nowhere to hide. Her mind, energy, and strength, all of her will, under extreme shock, made Jian Wufei more focused than ever. She, who was one with the sword, seemed to tear through the void and lock onto Chen Hao's forehead. She didn't believe that Chen Hao could use another killer move. Plus, even if Chen Hao could use another killer move, she was confident that she could use her strongest sword to kill Chen Hao. Hiss! Closer, closer! Jian Wufei seemed to see the hope of victory. Ah! Chen Shui screamed. But at this moment, she couldn't help at all. Not to mention that she couldn't use her killer move in time. Even if she did, it would be useless. Yu Qingfeng was excited, but at the same time, he was terrified. What did Chun Hao's consecutive killer moves mean? Just what sort of concept was that when Jian Wufei concealed herself, she was able to erupt with peerless might? He, Yu Qingfeng, was the strongest of the three forces the South Sea Islands intersect. But at this moment, he knew that whether it was Chun Hao or Jian Wufei, he couldn't win against them. Luckily, the two of them were on the verge of death. He was certain that Chun Hao would die and Jian Wufei wouldn't be any better. At that time, it will be time for him to kill Jian Wufei. At this moment of life and death, the pale-faced Chun Hao's expression was cold to the extreme. 3 consecutive platinum sky splitting slashes was his limit. In reality, if it wasn't for his dual cultivation of martial arts and mental energy, allowing his mental energy to surpass others of the same level and his soul power to surpass others, he wouldn't have been able to use his killer moves in succession. But even so, the price he had to pay was great. With his current strength, he could definitely use 10 platinum sky splitting slashes. But just 3 of them cost him 60% of his true energy. But he couldn't even hurt Jian Wufei. And at this moment, he was facing Jian Wufei's true killer move. At this moment, Chun Hao could clearly tell that even if he combined the solitary sword technique and the space element into the platinum sky splitting slash and used all his strength, he still wouldn't be able to defend against her strongest attack. What would the result be? Death. Melt for me. The thick aura of death made Chun Hao go crazy. There was no reason to hide anymore. He couldn't hide anymore. Otherwise, he would be the one to die. As Chun Hao shouted, Chun Hao slashed out again. It was still the platinum sky splitting slash. It still contained the space element. But the difference was boom, 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 boom. Ayo, 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 ga, ga. Along with Chun Hao's strike, the roar of a beast that resounded through the heavens, and the earth suddenly gushed out from the 5-element sword. Flying dragon leaves the abyss. Qilin breaks the earth. Fierce tiger descends the mountain. Vermilion bird burns the heavens. Turtle snake overturns the sea. The inherited power of the 5 divine beasts was forcefully infused into the platinum sky splitting slash by Chun Hao. Ever since he obtained the 5 divine beasts, he basically hid them. First, he didn't want to borrow their power. Second, he didn't have the time to spend on the 5 divine beasts during his intense cultivation journey. However, this mindset had changed when he was cultivating in the Grotto Heaven. In the past, he was biting off more than he could chew. He was fantasizing too much about the secrets of the Tao. He didn't realize that only the things in his hands belonged to him. Only by constantly comprehending and perfecting one's own Tao would one be able to step onto the strongest path. Chun Hao didn't know the consequences of forcefully fusing them, but he knew that if he didn't do so, he would die. Between the unknown and death, he chose the unknown. At this moment, Chun Hao felt as if all the essence, energy, and spirit in his body had been sucked out. His internal organs, meridians, and golden core had all suffered a severe backlash in an instant. However, Chun Hao gritted his teeth and completed this sword strike, the strongest slash of his life. Part 1. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 287. The terrified Chun Shui felt as if her heart was in her throat. She circulated her energy to the maximum as she prepared to fight with her life on the line. She had always been calm and was rarely impulsive. But facing the possibility of Chun Hao dying under Jian Wufei's sword, she could no longer remain calm. But at this moment, Chun Shui, who thought that Chun Hao had reached his limit, didn't expect Chun Hao to once again display strength that exceeded her expectations. How is this possible? Yu Qingfeng was already a little dumbfounded. His face was twisted to the extreme as he stared at Chun Hao in a daze. His heart trembled as he couldn't take the repeated blows from Jian Wufei and Chun Hao. He also deeply understood that if he fought with Jian Wufei in Chun Hao in a life and death battle, he would be the one to lose. Jian Wufei was even more terrified than Qin Shui and Yu Chengfeng. When Chun Hao broke through his limit and unleashed his strongest attack, Swordswoman's cold eyes suddenly shrank. She had never felt fear before, but at this moment, she felt the threat of death from the depths of her heart. She couldn't tell what the outcome would be, but she knew that she couldn't win, and there was no way out. Clang, rumble. The two swords clashed, causing the earth to crack. At this moment, even the heavens and earth darkened. Jian Wufei's body was like a kite with a broken string. She spat out a stream of blood as she flew backwards. On the other hand, Chun Hao, who was already standing on the ground, was directly struck by the terrifying recoil, creating a deep ravine on the ground. His entire body also spat out a mouthful of blood as he fell limply to the ground. Chun Hao, hiss! Chun Shui cried out loudly in terror. Then she suddenly vanished on the spot and charged towards Chun Hao like a bolt of lightning. Ha ha ha! Geniuses, top geniuses, you're all top geniuses. But today you will all die in my hands. Ha ha hiss! When Yu Chengfeng saw the results of the battle, he immediately woke up from his shock. He laughed wildly in excitement. As he spoke, he turned into a streak of light and shot towards Jian Wufei, who was still floating in the void. He would first kill the heavily injured Jian Wufei, then kill Chun Hao, who was protected by Chun Shui. His wishful thinking was absolutely good. But just as Yu Chengfeng was about to catch up to Jian Wufei, a terrifying aura suddenly surged out of Jian Wufei's forehead. It was an aura that Jian Wufei didn't even have at her peak state. This aura was extremely strong. Not to mention a half-step nascent soul stage cultivator. Even in primordial spirit stage, cultivator wouldn't have this aura. At this moment, the aura Yu Chengfeng felt was not at all inferior to the aura of their sect master. In his fear, Yu Chengfeng almost fell from the sky. How would he dare to attack? It was also at this moment that Yu Chengfeng saw an illusory figure containing a terrifying will appear beside Jian Wufei. That illusory figure lightly waved his hand at Jian Wufei. In the next instant, the illusory figure transformed into a mysterious energy that enveloped Jian Wufei. After that, the illusory figure vanished into the void. Celestial Prime's will. Could it be the Celestial Prime's will? How is this possible? How'd she get it? This time, Yu Chengfeng was really scared out of his wits. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. No matter what, he did not expect Jian Wufei to have obtained the Celestial Prime's will. As a top genius of a 9th-ranked sect in the South Sea, his knowledge was far beyond that of Chun Hao and Qin Shui. How many people in the entire boundless continent could obtain the Celestial Prime's will? In Yu Chengfeng's knowledge, only in the most powerful, chaotic, and competitive Middle Continent, there are less than 2 top geniuses who could obtain the Celestial Prime's will. This was the protection that the supreme existence of the boundless continent, the limitless celestial palace, gave to the geniuses with great potential. Those who were able to obtain the protection were all exceptional geniuses. Although Yu Chengfeng had the confidence to break through, the current him was not even worth a fart in front of these people. But Jian Wufei, who was only half a step away from the nascent soul stage, obtained it. I actually lost. Jian Wufei, who was surrounded by a mystical aura and extremely weak, spoke with an unwilling expression on her face within a mystical space. This space was a mini heavenly abode that the Celestial Primes will opened up. With the protection of this heavenly abode, Jian Wufei could naturally escape death. However, from now on, she would no longer have her strongest trump card. That was because everyone only had one chance. When she saw Chun Hao's true strength, she was fearless because of this trump card. But at that time, she never thought that she would need it. If she knew this would happen, she would rather give up on Chun Hao. It was just a training ground for the Golden Core and nascent soul stage cultivators. How good could the items in the heavenly abode be? She wouldn't trade for anything precious, let alone primal crystal stones, heaven-level techniques, or upper-level spiritual weapons. This was something that could even save her life if she met an essence soul stage cultivator. But now, it was wasted on Chun Hao, a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Course stage. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wufei's eyes shone with unwillingness and coldness. She didn't waste any more time and entered the state of recovery. Since I can't kill her now, I'll just kill Chun Hao. Yu Changfeng, who was on the verge of pissing himself, was stunned for a few minutes under that terrifying aura. He only came back to his senses when all the immortal venerate's wills dissipated. He thought to himself viciously, but when he turned around, Chun Hao and Chen Shui were nowhere to be seen. They ran away. Yu Qingfeng was both shocked and furious. He spread out his senses, but couldn't sense any trace of Chun Hao and Chen Shui's auras. After a month of hard work, he didn't even get anything. He even watched as the other 4 super geniuses of the South Sea Islands were killed. Adding on the fact that Chun Hao and Jian Wufei had hurt him, it was hard for his heart not to be twisted. Die, die, die. You all have to die. Chun Hao's talent, comprehension, and combat power are no less than Jian Wufei's. If he's allowed to grow, he will definitely be able to obtain the Celestial Prime's will. He must die. That girl is no worse than me. It's obviously impossible to subdue her. She must die too. Jian Wufei must die too. The Celestial Primes can only save her life once. She's gone. I've already offended them. If I don't kill them, they'll kill me one day. Yu Qingfeng had no choice but to crush a sect disciple communication talisman. He sent out all the information about Chun Hao, Chen Shui, and Jian Wufei. He believed that the peak late-stage nascent soul realm and half-step incarnation realm experts in the sect who had entered Sky City would not ignore him after receiving his information. Because even though he was half-step nascent soul, his prestige in the sect was unparalleled. Because his potential was undoubtedly the strongest. The only difference now was the difference in cultivation level. After doing all this, Yu Changfeng turned into a ray of light and flew towards the depths of Sky City. It was obviously impossible to chase after Chun Hao and Chen Shui. Once Chun Hao recovered a bit, it wouldn't be a problem of chasing after him, but how to escape. He was already scared out of his wits by Chun Hao and Jian Wufei. As for Jian Wufei, he knew that she couldn't be here with the Celestial Prime's will. Otherwise, she wouldn't be a life-saving talisman. In the void, every time they flashed, they would travel a few hundred feet. Chen Shui carried the heavily injured Chun Hao and pushed her speed to the limit. She had reached the peak of the early stage of the greater mastery of the space element, so her speed was extremely fast. Even a peak late-stage nascent soul or a half-step incarnation realm expert might not be able to catch up to her. And this was the speed of carrying a person. Chen Hao's injuries were very serious. The injuries on his body weren't any less than when he entered the cultivation paradise. What was more serious was that Chun Hao had used up all his energy. Even his essence, energy, and soul seemed to have been sucked dry. He was extremely weak. It could be said that the battle between Chun Hao and Jian Wufei was a lose-lose situation. Both of them had almost lost their lives. With such heavy injuries, Chun Hao naturally couldn't be carried by Chen Shui. She could only hold him firmly in her arms. Moreover, while flying at such a high speed, she had to use her energy to protect Chun Hao. At the same time, she poured her true yuan into Chun Hao's almost dried-up dantian to help him refine the healing pills. You close your eyes? In the beginning, Chen Shui, who was busy running away, put all her focus on how to get rid of Yu Qingfeng. After flying continuously for an hour, when she was sure that Yu Changfeng couldn't catch up to her, Chen Shui suddenly realized that Chun Hao, who was in her arms, was staring at her. If he was staring, then so be it. Occasionally looking was nothing. But after looking a few times, Chen Shui discovered that Chun Hao's eyes were open the entire time. Chen Shui finally couldn't help but say, "Actually, you could have killed Yu Qingfeng. Why did you run?" Chen Hao didn't answer Chen Shui. Instead, he weakly said, feeling Chen Shui's warm and soft embrace. Although Chun Hao was heavily injured, his heart was very satisfied. It wasn't that Chun Hao had any shameless thoughts. It was because this child lacked too much love and care in his previous life. Chun Shui desperately running away with him made him feel like he was being protected. What made him speechless was that this fellow actually enjoyed this rare warmth. Coupled with the faint fragrance of Chun Shui's virgin body, it was simply too easy to intoxicate him. I'm not absolutely sure. It would be bad if you were to be affected. Chun Shui avoided Chun Hao's gaze as she searched for a temporary shelter. I'm not that weak. The most serious thing is that I've exhausted my energy. Even if this injury was 10 times more serious, it wouldn't be a problem. If that kid doesn't die, Sky City will be much more dangerous for us. Just be careful and avoid it. It's nothing. Chun Shui said, but that Jian Wufei is really too terrifying. That appeared at the end. There's always a mountain higher than the other. Cough, cough. Chun Hao opened his mouth and said. However, when he spoke, his eyes, which were lying on his back, were looking at the charming and gentle figure. This was definitely unintentional, but since he had already said it, he couldn't take it back. Fortunately, Chun Shui didn't have any reaction. Chun Hao hurriedly said, that was the will of a celestial sovereign. Let alone me. Even a primordial soul realm expert wouldn't be able to kill her. Will of a celestial sovereign? What is that? Chun Shui asked in surprise. Second update. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 288. The Immortal Sovereign's will is the protection of the limitless immortal palace. Only the true geniuses of the limitless immortal palace have it. Jian Wufei comprehended the mountain river Sword Dao at the Golden Core stage and condensed the Sword Dao will. She is indeed extraordinary. It is said that the number of disciples under the nascent soul stage in a limitless continent can be counted on one hand. Only the monstrous geniuses of the middle continent have it. Of course, this is only on the surface. The ones that spread out are those who have used the immortal sovereign's will. No one would say such things. Just like Jian Wufei, if it wasn't exposed, who would know that she had it? Maybe there are people in the eastern continent who have it too. Chun Hao said slowly. When he mentioned the eastern continent, Xia Yuyu's figure appeared in Chun Hao's mind. How do you know so much? Chun Shui looked at Chun Hao in surprise. It's a secret. Chun Hao's blood-stained lips curled up slightly. He used the word secret to dodge Chun Shui's question. He couldn't help it. Itoda knew all this, and he couldn't say it out loud. Chun Shui pouted unhappily and didn't ask further. More than 10 minutes later, Chun Shui found a small but absolutely hidden cave on a mountain peak. With his powerful soul perception, he confirmed that there was no danger before leading Chun Hao in. It had to be said that Chun Hao's recovery ability was obviously several times stronger than the last time he was seriously injured. In just 2 hours of flight, although he had Chun Shui's help, the two of them were still chatting. But even so, the huge injuries on Chun Hao's body had recovered by about 30%. Under the effect of the pure medicine, the true Yuan in his Dantian had also recovered by 10%. We are flying toward the outer area. There shouldn't be any danger here. Hurry up and heal your injuries. I will guard you. Chun Shui put Chun Hao down and said, Okay. Chun Hao nodded. He didn't stand on ceremony and entered a state of cultivation. Chun Shui sat cross-legged at the entrance of the cave. Although Chun Shui didn't enter the life and death battle, the pressure that Yu Chengfeng gave her and the battle between Chun Hao and Jian Wufei gave her a lot of benefits. Once she completely digested it, Chun Shui was sure that her battle strength would increase by a lot. A day later, Chun Shui was meditating when she suddenly felt a familiar fluctuation in the surrounding space. It was familiar because she had experienced it before. But what surprised Chun Shui was that this fluctuation was far more powerful than what she had experienced before. At this instant, Chun Shui clearly felt that the energy of heaven and earth that she could originally easily absorb had actually been forcefully pulled away from her body at this moment, as if it had been sucked into a vacuum, causing her to be unable to absorb the slightest bit of it. Sovereigns! Chun Shui opened her eyes in surprise and stared at Chun Hao, who was sitting cross-legged not far away. Clearly, Chun Hao's cultivation had advanced once again. Half-stage. What is the concept of half-stage? Specifically, any half-stage cultivator has the necessary conditions to enter the original realm. As long as they are willing, they can trigger the heaven's punishment. It's just that no one dares to trigger the heaven's punishment. From the golden elixir realm onwards, any breakthrough in the next realm requires one to undergo the heaven's punishment. The strength of the heaven's punishment varies from person to person. The stronger the person, the more terrifying the heaven's punishment. No cultivator dares to trigger the heaven's punishment recklessly. Especially for normal cultivators, the heaven's punishment is a nightmare to them. Some people will only risk their lives when their lifespan is nearing its end. Even super geniuses like Chu Qing Tian, Gu Xing, and Wu Ruochen don't dare to be careless. Of course, it's not that they are afraid that they can't overcome it. It's that they want to improve themselves more. The stronger the heaven's punishment is, the greater the danger, but the greater the rewards. This is because the heaven's punishment is a refinement of the body, soul, and mind. If one can successfully overcome it, there will be great benefits. Therefore, these super geniuses will only trigger the heaven's punishment when they can no longer improve themselves and when their minds are perfect and they have no inner demons. Though this slows down their cultivation speed, once they enter a higher realm, they will have more potential and more flexibility. Phew! Half-stage original realm. After a full 10 minutes, Chunhao let out a long breath and slowly opened his eyes. His handsome face shone with a trace of excitement. Chunhao could clearly feel that the golden elixir in his dantian was beating slightly. Like a baby's heart, it produced a trace of life. This was the sign of forming the original realm. As long as he triggers the heaven's punishment, he will successfully overcome it. He will break through to the original realm. The density of my Zhen Yuan has increased by 40%. I didn't think that a half-step original realm cultivator would be so powerful. Hee hee. Chunhao saw Chan Shui staring at him and smiled. He was certain that if he would have faced Jian Wufei's last attack, Chunhao would be able to easily take it. This is the absolute power brought by the increase in cultivation level. 40%? Are you sure? Chen Shui was shocked. Is it a lot? It seems a bit much, hee hee. Chunhao smiled proudly. Edo Tao was already roaring in Chunhao's mind. What do you mean a bit much? When I reached the half-step nascent soul stage, it only increased by 25%. That was already very shocking. Half-step nascent soul realm was only at the golden core realm. But you increased it by 40%. If you enter the original realm, I really don't know how much you can improve. Chen Shui said speechlessly. You will know when the time comes. Speaking of which, I'm curious. Why are you in such a hurry to increase your cultivation level? With your talent, if you weren't in a hurry to increase your cultivation level, your early original realm strength wouldn't be so low. Secret. What caused Chunhao to be speechless was that Chen Shui straightforwardly gave him a taste of his own medicine and shut Chunhao's mouth. Should we continue, or? Chen Shui calmed herself down and changed the topic. Let's wait a few more days. This battle allowed me to comprehend a lot of things, and I have just increased my cultivation level, so I need to digest it. Chunhao said, if it was before entering the grotto heaven, he would definitely choose to go deeper. But now, Chunhao's mentality has changed. Even in this once-in-a-century sky city, he can face it calmly. It has to be said that since stepping into the cultivation world, Chunhao has been rushing forward, almost without any pause. It seems that the improvement is amazing, but now, Chunhao understands that if this situation continues, it will not be a good thing. Tension and relaxation, the way of civil and martial arts. Such a simple truth is often the easiest to ignore. The so-called relaxation is not to abandon everything, but to stop and digest. Only in this way can you improve yourself from a deeper level, understand yourself, and surpass yourself. Okay, I also need a few days to digest it. I will go out for a while and be back in a while. Chen Shui said, you want to take a bath and change your clothes, right? Chunhao naturally knew what Chen Shui was going to do. He smiled slightly and asked without hesitation. Why do you ask if you know? What I mean is, you don't have to go out. I will give you a surprise later. Chen Hao smiled slightly and said mysteriously. He took out the five elements sword and swept his gaze across the cave. Then he started to attack continuously. Chi 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 chi. With Chen Hao's sword light, the hard rocks flew out of the cave like tofu. After a while, the cave that was originally only 10 feet in radius became 100 feet in radius. Moreover, at the bottom, there were two independent small caves. If they were standing alone, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, Chen Hao had obviously turned these two small caves into baths that were 10 feet wide and 3 feet deep. What are you doing? Chen Shui was curious about what surprise Chen Hao would give her, but after seeing Chen Hao make this space, she asked puzzledly. Look carefully. Voila! Following Chen Hao's voice, something that shocked Chen Shui happened. The clear, sparkling water that contained dense and pure spiritual qi of heaven and earth actually gushed out from Chen Hao's body. In an instant, one of the baths was filled to the brim. Spiritual spring. You. How can you take it out? In almost an instant, Chen Shui recognized what Chen Hao released. Hee. Secret. I also didn't expect to take it out, but the moment we came out, I took it out. All right, this bathing pool is yours. It's enough for you to absorb for a few days. If it's not enough, just look for me. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao in a daze as he walked out of the small cave. How is this possible? How did he do it? This time, Chen Shui was really stunned by the word secret from Chen Hao. One had to know that when she was cultivating in the grotto heaven, she had tried it. Once the spiritual spring was absorbed into the storage space, the spiritual qi in it would disappear completely, and there would be no difference between it and ordinary water. Moreover, she clearly remembered that Chen Hao had also tried it before, and it also didn't work. But how did he get out now? Other than the fact that it didn't contain the profound space attribute, it was exactly the same as the spiritual spring in the grotto heaven. How many secrets does he have? Chen Shui originally thought that she had enough secrets, but compared to Chen Hao, it seemed to be far from enough. Chen Shui was both depressed and happy. After blocking the hole, she took off her blue dress that was stained with Chen Hao's blood and jumped into the spirit spring. Although her true essence had long since cleaned up the stains on her body, her many years of habit still made Chen Shui gently scrub every inch of her smooth and sparkling skin. After taking off her veil, her skin was as white as snow, and she was devastatingly beautiful. Her beautiful eyes flickered, and no one knew what she was thinking. In short, after more than 10 minutes, she threw away the distracting thoughts in her mind and entered into a state of cultivation. After Chen Hao pretended to be calm and entered another small cave, his face was filled with intense joy. Even he didn't expect that the mysterious existence in his mind would bring him such a pleasant surprise. Although he couldn't take away all the spiritual spring in the grotto heaven, if he released all of it, it would be enough to form a small lake with a diameter of 200 feet and a depth of 100 feet. How high was the value of this? Third update to fill in the gaps. There is no update tonight. Everyone don't wait. I finished early today, the result of staying up late last night, so that I can play with my daughter tonight. I haven't played with her since I came back from Nanjing. Tomorrow, I will continue to work hard in Dark Mountain. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 289. Chen Hao's mind was immersed in the Heaven and Earth Ring. The Heaven and Earth Ring was originally a low-grade spiritual weapon, but when combined with the 5 spiritual swords, it surpassed high-grade spiritual weapons and was close to supreme-grade spiritual weapons. Unlike ordinary spiritual weapons, it also had a storage space, and as Chen Hao's realm increased, the size of the storage space gradually increased. Until now, Chen Hao had not completely merged with the Heaven and Earth Ring, but he was not far away. What a pity, what a pity. If the space of the Heaven and Earth Ring was big enough, it might be able to store all the spiritual spring in the grotto heaven. Chen Hao had never felt that the space of the Heaven and Earth Ring was small, but now it was almost filled with spring water. He was sure that when he walked out of the grotto heaven, the mysterious existence had helped him fill it up. However, at this moment, he had stepped into the half-step nascent soul stage, so there was a little more space. 1 square foot contains the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which is equivalent to a low-grade primordial crystal stone. My spiritual spring is 3 million cubic feet, which is equivalent to 3 million low-grade primordial crystal stones, which is 30,000 high-grade primordial crystal stones, and 3,000 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. Cultivating the grotto heaven only gives me 100 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. Chen Hao's mind was immersed in the heaven and earth ring, and he calculated in his heart, "Master, the value of the spiritual spring can't be calculated like that. Although the spiritual spring has lost the space attribute, it still contains an ancient aura, and the energy in it is also extremely pure. If you sell it to an alchemist or a weapon refiner, the price will be several times higher. Moreover, Master, you must minor in alchemy and weapon refinement, and it will be better for you to use it." Ito Tai said, Of course, I will keep good things for my own use." Chen Hao replied, "Almost all cultivators would be involved in alchemy and weapon refinement. It was just a major and a minor. Weapon refinement was especially important. After reaching the primordial soul stage, almost everyone had to learn it. After all, it was very difficult to obtain a powerful spiritual weapon, and to let one's weapon exert the greatest power, one could only continuously modify it. Moreover, only one knew what one needed the most. A weapon refiner could refine a powerful spiritual weapon, but it was not necessarily the most suitable for one's own spiritual weapon. For true experts, their natal magic treasures were obtained through continuous refinement and refinement. His mind came out of the mysterious yellow ring. Chen Hao was actually reluctant to pour the spirit spring into the bath. Anyway, he had just been promoted to the half-step nascent soul stage and was already in the peak state. Therefore, he directly took off his blood-stained and torn clothes, and with a surge of his true essence, he removed the stains on his body. After changing into an ordinary robe, he went to the big hole and activated his energy to lay down layers of enchantments within a radius of 1,000 feet. After making sure that he would not disturb Chen Hao took out the 5-element sword, integrated his mind into it, and stabbed with the sword. After the battle with Jian Wufei, Chen Hao no longer had any trump cards to speak of. Now, what he needed to do was to truly integrate the inheritance of the 5 divine beasts into the platinum sky-piercing slash and completely turn the platinum sky-piercing slash into a true combo ultimate move. As long as he could achieve these 2 points, his combat strength would increase again. At the same time, he wanted to see if he could make a breakthrough in his sword Dao. Chen Hao had already awakened his sword intent, and his sword intent had already reached the first level of the sword Dao. Moreover, in the battle with Jian Wufei, facing the terrifying sword intent, Chen Hao could clearly feel that his sword intent was showing signs of breakthrough. Once it reached the second level of the sword Dao, even if he did not comprehend the sword intent, his combat strength would increase by a lot. As for the sword intent, Chen Hao did not ask for it. This was because he did not cultivate the corresponding sword techniques, and his sword intent was not high enough, so it would be difficult for him to form the sword intent. Phew! Jian Wufei let out a long sigh and slowly opened her eyes in the small hole that seemed to be floating in the void. As expected of a celestial sovereign's intent, just a strand of divine will conform such a powerful, small hole. If it was a real person, how strong would it be? In just 2 days, without any healing elixirs, I have not only recovered to my peak state, but my sword intent has also reached the middle stage of the greater success stage. If I use the 5th level of the Mountain River Sword technique now, I will definitely not suffer any backlash. Jian Wufei's eyes shone brightly, and her face was filled with confidence as she thought to herself, Chen Hao, don't let me find you. Otherwise, I will cut you into 1,000 pieces and destroy your body and soul. And that woman, they will all die. As for you, Qingfeng, I can only endure for now. Jian Wufei said coldly, and she already had a plan in mind. Sensing that the small hole was about to shatter, Jian Wufei slowly stood up, and the unwillingness in her heart grew. Her hatred for Chen Hao grew even stronger. After stepping out of the small hole, Jian Wufei appeared in Sky City again. The surrounding heaven and earth spiritual qi was extremely dense, and it was obvious that it was of a higher level than where she and Shun Hao were originally. Without any hesitation, Jian Wufei sent the message and crushed the sect's communication talisman. She had done the same thing as Yu Qingfeng. However, she didn't try to get the sect's disciples to kill Yu Qingfeng. This was because Jian Wufei knew that Yu Qingfeng was a super genius from the Coiling Dragon Valley, a rank 9 sect in the South Sea Islands. The Coiling Dragon Valley was a sect that was much stronger than the Sky River sect, and they had a unique position in the South Sea Islands. They definitely had more peak late nascent soul and half-step incarnation realm experts than the Sky River sect that Jian Wufei was in. Even if she said it, the sect's disciples wouldn't dare to provoke him. There was no need to waste energy. Unless she met Yu Qingfeng, who was alone, she could only let him go for now. 10 days later. Qingfeng, there's still no news. We can't delay any longer. There are less than 2 months left in Sky City, and in 20 days, the core of the ancient city will open. We have to go. Maybe we can meet them there. Deep in Sky City, on a mountain peak, a half-step incarnation realm youth with a powerful aura said calmly. This youth's face was like jade, and he wore a white robe that was spotless. Beside him stood 2 extremely beautiful women, one on his left and one on his right, and it was obvious that they had a close relationship. If the people of the South Sea Islands saw him, they would know who he was. This youth was the strongest sect in the South Sea Islands, the leader of the core disciples of the Coiling Dragon Valley, Yi Shanshui. His combat strength was unfathomable, and he had the bloodline of the ancient divine dragon. He was also the leader of the Coiling Dragon Valley disciples, and he was ranked first in the test. Even Yu Qingfeng didn't dare to say that he had absolute confidence in surpassing this person. Fortunately, Yi Shanshui was determined to travel the world with his beauty. Moreover, he was more than 10 years older than Yu Qingfeng, so there was no competitive relationship between them. Both of them were extremely lustful, and they were both top geniuses, so they had a good relationship. All right, that's all we can do for now, Yu Qingfeng said with a gloomy face. Under Yi Shanshui's orders, the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Valley who had entered the Sky City and the sects of Hanji and the other geniuses had been searching for 10 days, but they had yet to find any news about Shun Hao, Chen Shui, or Jian Wufei. Are you going to follow us, or do you want to go on your own? Yi Shanshui asked. I'll follow you, Yu Qingfeng said hesitantly. Haha, this isn't like you. Yu Qingfeng's expression was a bit ugly. Yu Qingfeng's expression was a bit ugly as he said, "You didn't see how strong Chen Hao and Jian Wufei were. One can use his ultimate moves in succession and has the inheritances of the 5 mythological beasts. The other Sword and Ten has reached large success, and she has mastered the 5th level of the Mountain River Sword Dao. I'm not their match right now, unless I can awaken my bloodline to the 2nd level, but damn it. All right, your bloodline is much stronger than mine, so it's naturally hard for you to awaken it. Follow me, and if we meet them, I'll kill them for you. If you can't increase your strength, then you'll attract divine punishment when you leave Sky City." Yes. Yu Qingfeng nodded his head and replied. Hiss. Boom, boom, boom. 3 incomparably sharp sword lights shot out almost at the same time. In an instant, a mountain peak with a diameter of 300 feet was directly cut into 3 sections and collapsed with a loud bang. The incomparably sharp sword intent lasted for a few minutes before it slowly dissipated. 3 consecutive sword attacks. I can already easily do it. My sword intent has also broken through to the 2nd level of the Sword Dao, but the 5 divine beasts are still unable to merge naturally. It looks like it won't be done in a short period of time. Only by merging with the 5 divine beasts will it be possible. But even so, my battle strength has increased by quite a bit. Even if I meet a late nascent soul stage super genius, I have a 70% chance of winning. Peak late nascent soul stage and half incarnation stage, with the space element and the mental cultivation method to merge with everything in the world, I should have no problem staying alive. Chun Hao slowly put away his sword as he judged. Is it done? At this moment, Chun Shui, who was standing near Chun Hao, asked. Dressed in a blue dress, she stood tall and slender. At this moment, her aura had clearly improved. It's about time. If you meet Yu Qingfeng again, what are your chances of winning? Chun Hao asked as he sensed Chun Shui's aura. 100%. The premise is that he hasn't become stronger, Chun Shui said confidently. After nearly 10 days of digestion and absorption, Chun Shui's improvement was no less than Chun Hao's. Not only did she break through from the peak of the early nascent soul stage to the middle nascent soul stage, but her chaos sword technique had also improved, and she had mastered the 6th level of the Tempest Thunder Tribulation. Moreover, she had also comprehended some of the solitary sword technique that Chun Hao had taught her. It had to be said that although the cultivation environment in Sky City had a lot to do with the two's monstrous speed of improvement, it was still much faster for other super geniuses. Not bad. Let's go then. Let's go straight to the depths. The ancient city area is about to open. With our strength, as long as we hide, we will have no problem staying alive, Chun Shui said. Okay. 5 days later, the two of them were meditating to recover and flying. Without stopping to rest, they advanced into the depths of Sky City. Along the way, they encountered many cultivators and flying beasts, but the two of them quietly avoided them. Firstly, it was not challenging. Secondly, there was not much time left before the core of the ancient city area opened, and they did not have time to waste. Thirdly, there were too many people who wanted to trouble them. Once they were exposed, they might attract countless experts. It cannot be helped. Just the disciples of the Eastern Continent alone would want to trample on Chun Hao, or even kill him. Moreover, Chun Hao had killed several top geniuses from the Southern Sea Islands and the Western Continent. First update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 290. As Chun Hao and Chun Shui continued to go deeper, they encountered more and more cultivators. They saw countless small-scale battles, and most of them were people from different continents. However, these had nothing to do with the two of them. Both of them blended into everything in the world and drifted past like two gusts of wind. When the two of them were about to find a place to recover, Chun Shui suddenly seemed to have noticed something. What did you notice? Chun Hao asked. In these few days, Chun Hao was completely sure that Chun Shui, who had stepped into the intermediate nascent soul stage, was more than 30% stronger than him in terms of perception ability. Chun Hao's current perception ability limit of 500 miles was already very heaven-defying. Even compared to a super genius at the half-step incarnation stage, it was still slightly stronger. However, Chun Shui could easily sense the distance within a radius of 800 miles. 500 miles and 800 miles seemed to be only 300 miles apart. But if one were to draw a circle with oneself as the center, Chun Shui's perception area was more than twice of Chun Hao's. It seems like Duan Yufei and Xia Lan Lan from the Ling Tian sect are fighting with someone. I can't sense it clearly. They're about 800 miles to our left, and they're rapidly approaching us. They seem to be closely followed by 4 auras, Chun Shui said. Although Chun Shui did not associate with Duan Yufei and Xia Lan Lan, the two of them seemed to have a good relationship with Chun Hao. Moreover, Chun Shui was familiar with their auras. In Chun Shui's mind, Duan Yufei and Xia Lan Lan were people who helped Chun Hao greatly. Since she sensed it, she said it out loud. Let's go and take a look. Duan Yufei is not bad. As expected, just as Chun Shui expected, Chun Hao said without even thinking. Whoosh whoosh. Duan Yufei and Xia Lan Lan both had moderate wounds on their bodies. It was obvious that they had experienced a dangerous battle. At this moment, the two of them were flying at full speed. Less than 10 miles behind them, there were 4 cultivators from the Southern Sea Islands in hot pursuit. Moreover, the distance was getting closer and closer. It was obvious that they were faster than the two of them. These 4 people were the same as Duan Yufei and Xia Lan Lan. They were all at the peak of the early nascent soul stage. Ha! Let's see where you can run to. The leading youth of the four actually condensed a pair of solid wings with his pure and vigorous true essence, causing his speed to suddenly soar. Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan frowned when they sensed the other party's speed. After the two entered Sky City, they were the first to meet and train together. With their battle prowess, they basically wouldn't encounter any danger in the periphery. However, when the core area of the ancient city was about to open, they rushed to meet up with the disciples of the sect. They did not expect to find a 3,000-year-old immortal fruit tree on their way there. The immortal fruit spirit tree bloomed and bore fruit once every 100 years, bearing one fruit each time. Although it was not a spirit fruit that could increase one's cultivation base, its value was definitely higher than that of countless top-grade spirit herbs. This was because the immortal fruit was an extremely rare spiritual fruit that could increase one's lifespan. In the eyes of young geniuses like Chun Hao, increasing one's lifespan might not be a big deal. However, for some cultivators who had reached a bottleneck in their cultivation and were nearing the end of their lifespan, it could save their lives. Even though one immortal fruit could only increase one's lifespan by 3 years, once a cultivator broke through to the next realm, their lifespan would be extended. How high was its value? In the cultivation world, any spirit herb that could increase one's lifespan was basically priceless. Nobody would sell it. Occasionally, it would be auctioned for a sky-high price. It was impossible to estimate the exact price. However, now, not only was the immortal fruit spirit tree snatched away, but their lives were also in great danger. Although the two of them had already sent a message to the core disciples of the sect, distant water could not quench their present thirst. Seeing that there was no way to escape, the two of them knew that the only thing they could do was to risk their lives and pray that the sect's elite happened to be nearby. Swoosh, swoosh. Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan held hands tightly and looked at each other before they landed on a mountain peak. Each of them swallowed a few spirit pills and raised their aura to the limit. Ha ha! What a waste of my energy. You should have done this long ago. Don't expect anyone to come and save you. It'll take at least a few days to reach the core area of the ancient city. No matter how fast your sect's elites are, it'll take at least 2 to 3 days, right? Moreover, they're willing to give up their training in the core area of the ancient city to save you? Ha ha! After seeing that the two of them were no longer running away, the young man in the lead put away his true origin wings and said confidently, "Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh." After a while, the other 3 people also landed on the mountain peak. The 4 of them split into 4 directions and surrounded Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan as if they were prey. "You've already gotten the spirit tree. Why do you have to kill all of us?" Duan Yufei said coldly, "If you want to kill us, at least 2 of you will have to die with us." Die with us? Ha ha! Are you kidding me? Do you think the 4 of us will fight you to the death? I'll torture you to death no matter what. We have all the time in the world. Since we've gotten the spirit tree, there's no need for us to go to the dangerous core area anymore. Isn't it still cultivation there? Ha ha ha! The strongest young man said disdainfully when he heard Duan Yufei's words. "Brotherly, this woman is not bad. Although she's not a peerless beauty, she's still a rare beauty. You have to take it easy for me. Don't be too ruthless. Let me have some fun with her, F***CK. I want to have fun with her too." Another young man said, "Are you kidding me? So you're all into this too? Mother of ****, I didn't expect the 3 of you to be so famous in our archipelago. Are women really that fun? Ha! Brotherly, we naturally wouldn't dare to mess around in our Southern Sea archipelago. But what are the disciples of the Eastern continent afraid of? Women aren't just fun to play with. They have all kinds of fun. Only by experiencing it for yourself can you understand a thing or two. Of course, Brotherly is still a virgin. The 3 of us can have some fun with this chick. It won't be too late for Brotherly to try when we meet a beautiful virgin. Not only is the taste wonderful, it's also good for cultivation. And Yang blend, ha ha, bastard." Duan Yufei was so angry that his hair stood on end. He clenched his teeth so hard that blood came out. His anger was like a volcanic eruption. Boom! His true origin, which contained monstrous anger, exploded. Duan Yufei was like a mad beast and attacked directly. Yufei. Xiao Lamlin's face was pale. Death wasn't scary. With the person she loved by her side, she would live and die with him. What was there to fear? However, what Xiao Lanlan didn't expect was that the four of them were actually such scumbags. Seeing Duan Yufei attack, Xiao Lanlan, who originally wanted to self-detonate to avoid being humiliated, hesitated slightly and didn't do so. She fought first. Even if she died, she had to make the other party suffer a certain amount of damage. It wouldn't be too late to self-detonate at the last moment. Seeing the two of them angry, a trace of pride flashed in the depths of the four guys' eyes. This was exactly what they wanted. Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlin's realm and strength were on par with them. If they really wanted to kill them, they would have to face the two's life and death counterattack. At that time, the two of them might really drag one or two of them down with them. But the two of them who had lost their minds were much simpler. Fight with them and consume their true origin. Be careful of that woman. She might drag us down with her to self-detonate. Haha. The leading youth transmitted his voice to the other three. These four are quite sinister. In the void, Chun Hao and Chun Shui were like two cool breezes as they stared at Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan, who had already fallen into a great battle below them. Chun Shui transmitted her voice to Chun Hao. A distance of several hundred miles was a matter of minutes for the two of them at their maximum speed. When Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan landed on the mountain peak, the two of them had already arrived. It was just that they weren't in a hurry to attack. It's not that the four of them are sinister. It's that Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan are too inexperienced. It's the same for you, Chen Hao said bluntly. How am I the same? No matter what kind of battle, you can't give up until the last moment. Now, it's obvious that they already have the determination to die. This kind of situation can indeed increase their battle strength, but it's easier for them to fall into a real death trap. Last time, in the Black Wind Ancient Cave, you were the same, just slightly better than them. The more dangerous it is, the calmer you have to be. It's really unnecessary for them to lose their minds because of a few words from the other party. Otherwise, with their strength, even if they die, they can drag the two of you down with them. Chen Shui pursed her lips, but didn't say anything. It's time to attack. You don't have to show yourself. Wait for me for a moment. A few minutes later, Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan were already in a life and death situation. Chun Hao knew that he couldn't drag it on any longer. Otherwise, if Xiao Lanlan self-destructed, he wouldn't be able to save her. Hiss! Chun Hao's aura appeared above Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan out of thin air. Before anyone could react, he casually swung his sword 4 times. Chun Hao didn't use the platinum sky-splitting slash. He only used the flaw of the solitary sword technique to attack, raising his strength to 80% and containing the sword essence of the second heaven. Chi, 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 chi. Even so, the incomparably sharp sword intent instantly pressed down from all directions. Ah, chi, 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 chi. For screams, accompanied by the sound of flesh being pierced, suddenly rang out. Just a moment ago, the 4 people, who were in sight of victory, all widened their eyes and stared at Chun Hao, who was standing in the void. However, the blood spurting out from between their eyebrows made them lose consciousness instantly. They didn't even taste the pain of death. Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan, who weren't affected by Chun Hao's sword essence, also looked at the void with shock at this moment. Brother Duan, Miss Xia, I don't need your reward this time. I'll take their things. Chen Hao smiled and grabbed at the 4 corpses in the void. Immediately, their weapons and storage rings floated to Chen Hao. Be careful. Goodbye. While Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan were still in shock, Chen Hao's figure turned into a flowing light and quickly left their sight. After a long time, Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan woke up from their shocked state. They felt like they were dreaming after surviving a disaster. No matter what, they didn't expect that such a shocking reversal would happen when they were on the verge of death. Is this true? Xiao Lanlan reached out to pinch Duan Yufei's face and said in disbelief. Chun Hao had only appeared for a few seconds, but the 4 experts who had forced them into a desperate situation had died just like that. We owe Brother Chun 2 lives again, Duan Yufei murmured, holding Xiao Lanlan's hand, his eyes full of gratitude and joy after surviving a disaster. In his heart, he was even more shocked by Chun Hao's strength. It's 2 chapters today. I'll still write at night, but it'll be too late. In case everyone has to wait, I'll leave it to tomorrow. It'll be 4 chapters tomorrow. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 291. In the blink of an eye, he killed 4 peak early-stage nascent soul super geniuses with a casual wave of his sword. What kind of concept was that? If Chun Hao was at the half-step incarnation realm, it would be fine. But he was only at the golden core realm when they first met. Although Chun Hao's battle strength was astonishing, Duan Yufei was still confident that he could defeat Chun Hao. During this period of time, Duan Yufei and Xiao Lanlan had both stepped into the nascent soul realm and reached the peak of early-stage nascent soul realm. Their battle strength had increased several times, and their speed of improvement was enough to be proud of. But when they saw Chun Hao's attack just now, they knew what a monster was at this moment. Whether it was Duan Yufei or Xiao Lanlan, they were shocked beyond words. He really deserves Yu. Xiao Lanlan murmured. Only Yu deserves him, right? Duan Yufei thought to himself. Although it was just a reversal of the order, the meaning was completely different from what Xiao Lanlan had said. Obviously, in Duan Yufei's heart, Chun Hao was stronger and more worthy of respect. Xiao Yu had a unique cultivation environment, but what about Chun Hao? He was just an ordinary youth from his secular world who had stepped into the cultivation world step by step through his own efforts, and he had only entered a 3rd-grade sect. Even if he had the full support of the star-picking sect, he couldn't be compared to Xia Yu. But in just a few months, his growth could only be described as monstrous. Although the 2 of them had suffered a lot of injuries, they weren't fatal. After swallowing healing elixirs, it only took them half a day to recover 80% of their battle strength. The 2 of them restrained their auras and flew to the core of the ancient city at their fastest speed. There wasn't much time left, so they had to speed up. What kind of spirit tree is this? Chun Hao and Chun Shui didn't fly for too long before they found a hidden cave and entered it. In Sky City, where danger could appear at any time, the 2 of them had to be cautious. Once their true essence and physical strength were exhausted to 40%, they would stop rushing. Otherwise, once they encountered danger, their battle strength would be greatly affected. After the 2 of them entered the cave, Chun Hao rummaged through the 4 people's storage rings. In the storage ring of the young man who led the group, he took out the spirit tree that they had mentioned during their conversation. When Chun Hao saw the spirit tree, he sensed the spirit tree's aura and asked in surprise, "Immortal fruit spirit tree?" When Chun Hao's eyes widened in surprise, Ito's voice also sounded in Chun Hao's mind. "Yes, it's the immortal fruit tree." After a while, Chun Shui said with great certainty. Chun Shui saw extremely detailed records of heaven and earth spiritual objects in the sect, which almost included all the spiritual medicines in the world. It was 100 times richer than what Chun Hao had seen in the sect's information. What's the use? It seems like the heaven and earth spirit chi here isn't very dense. Chun Hao asked as he stared at the immortal fruit tree, which was about 30 meters tall. When Chun Shui explained the magical use and value of the immortal fruit tree, Chun Hao was a little disappointed. However, it soon turned into excitement. It was useless to him, but its value is high. Quickly put it away. If you can, put it near the spirit spring. With the nourishment of the spirit spring, it will grow faster. Yes, after it blossoms and bears fruit, I'll give you the first fruit, Chun Hao said. Although Chun Shui did not contribute, the 2 of them had gone through the trial together. Therefore, they had to share what was needed. As he spoke, he put the immortal fruit tree into the mysterious yellow ring and placed it at the edge of the spirit spring. "I don't need anything that can increase my lifespan," Chun Shui said. If you sell it, you'll get a lot of primal crystal stones. I don't lack them. You can keep them for yourself. Ahem. Sister Fu, you don't have to be polite with me. I won't be polite, Chunhao said with a smile. I'm not rich. Sister, I'll accept it. As long as it's for my cultivation, my sect. My mother will provide it to me, Chun Shui said. She almost said the word sect. Fortunately, she stopped in time. Although Chun Shui was certain that Chunhao would not discover her secret, it was better to be cautious. Moreover, she had told Chunhao that she was a rogue cultivator. That's good. Quickly recover. Oh, right. If you have any information on spirit herbs, ores, and so on, give me a copy. Otherwise, I won't know if I come across any treasures in the future, Chunhao said. The information on the star-picking sect is a little shabby. I didn't bring it with me. I'll give it to you when we get out. Okay. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days had passed. There was only 1 day left before the core ancient city area would open. At this moment, there were 1,000 people at the entrance of the core ancient city area. They were divided into 3 small areas and gathered within a 100-mile radius. There was a clear mark between this 100-mile radius and the surrounding space. It was as though a faint film of light was shrouded in it that shot up to the sky. It could be seen from tens of thousands of miles away. Obviously, this 100-mile radius was the only entrance to the core ancient city area after it opened. As time passed, people from the 3 forces were still arriving one after another. However, at this speed, there would definitely be less than 1,500 people by the time it opened. It should be known that a total of 3,000 people had stepped into Sky City. Where did the remaining half go? Obviously, there were only 2 results. They were either dead or too scared to come. Everyone knew that Sky City only had 3 months of training time. The first month was to test the results and strength of the disciples with similar combat strength and teleport them to the same area. In the second month, the entire Sky City, except for the core of the ancient city, would disappear. In the third month, the core of the ancient city would open, and it was also the most important month for Sky City. The core ancient city area was actually a huge space with a radius of 100,000 miles. It was also the real holy land for cultivation in Sky City. Not only was the spiritual energy of heaven and earth extremely rich, the entire space was filled with the mysterious aura of the heavenly Tao. It was very useful for cultivators to break through their own heavenly Tao. Moreover, in the huge space with a radius of 100,000 miles, there were some ancient palaces floating in the void. Whether one could enter it or not depended on one's opportunity, luck, and strength. Those with weak strength basically did not dare to try to enter the palaces. At most, they would choose a corner and secretly cultivate. Even so, they might face a fatal disaster. This was the battle of providence between the eastern and western continents and the southern sea archipelago. Who would be soft-hearted? Especially after killing people, they could obtain wealth. Many people want to do this. The area where the eastern mainland disciples were at was beyond the expectations of the southern sea archipelago and the western mainland disciples. This time, there were actually more than 350 people, which was dozens more than the western mainland. The southern sea archipelago had the most people with more than 400 people. In such a situation, nobody dared to act recklessly. Otherwise, both sides would suffer heavy casualties. Moreover, the ancient city area was about to open. Senior Brother Zhao, don't tell me those fellows from the Southern Sea Archipelago are guarding Lon Lon and Junior Brother Duan? At this moment, among the close to 20 Ling Tian sect disciples, a disciple at the peak of the mastering nascent soul stage asked the person beside him through voice transmission as he stared at the Southern Sea Archipelago powerhouses who were wandering outside the light screen. This disciple was the Ling Tian sect's core disciple, Xia Xiaodao. He was also the direct descendant of the sect leader, Xia Lingfeng. He was Xia Lan Lan and Xia Yuyu's cousin. I don't think so. The 4 people who were chasing after junior sister Lan Lan and junior brother Duan were killed by Chun Hao in an instant. Although junior brother Duan didn't say what treasure it was, since the 4 of them obtained the treasure and were confident of winning, it's impossible for them to tell the sect, said the disciple called Senior Brother Zhao. This person was the leader of the Ling Tian sect this time, Zhao Yuanqing. He was also second only to Xia Yuyu among the core disciples. The aura emitted from his body was obviously that he had advanced to the half-step incarnation stage. Although he was not as powerful as Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and Wu Ruochen, his combat strength was definitely in the top 10 among all the Eastern Mainland disciples. After he received Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei's message, he went to their location without hesitation. However, he was too far away and could not make in time. Fortunately, it did not take long before he received news from the two of them again. They said that the danger had been resolved and that they were saved by Chun Hao. Only then did he return the way he came with doubts. He was confused because he could not figure out how Chun Hao, who was only at the golden core stage before entering the sky, could save Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan, who were at the early nascent soul stage. It's good that he's not. Yishan Shui is the number 1 core disciple in the Southern Sea archipelago. His combat strength is unfathomable. If we're targeted by him, we'll be in trouble, Xia Xiaodao said. Lanlan and junior brother Duan should be here soon. F***CK. Don't tell me they don't dare to come. Yu Qingfeng, who was wandering at the edge and carefully sensing every person who came over, said fiercely when he saw that the ancient city was about to open. Until now, Chun Hao and Qin Shui had yet to appear. Jian Wufei did appear, but unfortunately, even with Yi Shanshui around, he could not do anything to Jian Wufei for now. This was something he did not expect. Jian Wufei's sect, the Tianhe sect, was one of the rank 9 sects in the Western continent, but it was not the strongest sect. However, when Jian Wufei arrived, she was welcomed by the strongest cultivators of the rank 9 sects in the Western continent, including the strongest sect, the Sacred Light sect. What did this mean? If Jian Wufei won a fight, it would mean that the Western continent and the Southern Sea Islands were at war. This time, the Eastern continent, which seemed to be on the rise, would definitely take advantage of the situation. Therefore, even Yishan Shui did not dare to make a move at this time. He could only place all his hopes on Chun Hao and Qin Shui. Yu Qingfeng knew that Chun Hao was only a disciple of a rank 3 sect. During this time, even though he did not find Chun Hao and Qin Shui, he had killed dozens of Eastern Continent disciples. From their mouths, he knew that Chun Hao was indeed a disciple of a rank 3 sect, and Qin Shui was just a rogue cultivator. With Yi Shanshui's status, as long as he said that he only wanted to deal with Chun Hao and Qin Shui, the people of the Eastern Continent would not stand up for him. After all, Chun Hao had killed the top geniuses of the 4 rank 9 sects in the Southern Sea Islands. Just as Yu Qingfeng was cursing, 2 figures came from afar. It was a man and a woman. First update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 292. They're all at the nascent soul stage. Not them. Yishan Shui had already spoken when Yu Qingfeng had yet to lock onto their auras. It was impossible to trigger the heavenly punishment in the Sky City. It was not a problem to go from the early stage to the intermediate stage to the mastery stage, or even to the half-step nascent soul stage. It was an undeniable fact that Chun Hao was at the golden core stage. It was Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan who had rushed over. Let's go in okay. In the void hundreds of miles away, 2 faint gusts of wind drifted between heaven and earth. Following their conversation, they silently began to move towards the entrance of the ancient city. The 2 of them were Chun Hao and Qin Shui. The 2 of them had been here for a long time, but they did not enter. They had no choice. Their strength was inferior, so they could only temporarily avoid it. Yi Shanshui's aura was really powerful. Moreover, it was not just Yi Shanshui alone. Chun Hao and Qin Shui knew very well that they were not Jian Wufei. If they were to appear, no one in the Eastern Continent would help them except for the Ling Tian sect. With just the 2 of them, it was absolutely impossible for them to fight against Yu Qingfeng's group. Even if it was Yi Shanshui alone, the 2 of them would not be able to fight against him. The gap between a half-step nascent soul stage genius was too big. Therefore, They could only conceal their aura. Fortunately, the two of them had cultivated the heart technique to merge with everything in the world. Otherwise, they would not be able to enter the core of the ancient city. Hiss, at the outermost area where the Southern Sea Archipelago disciples gathered, Chun Hao and Chun Shui quietly chose a corner far away from the crowd and entered the light screen without anyone noticing. The reason why they chose the Southern Sea Archipelago and not the Eastern continent was naturally because they had their own plans. Be careful with your senses. You don't have to sense those at the half-step nascent soul stage. After the two of them stopped, Chen Hao transmitted his voice to Chen Shui. I know, don't worry, Chen Shui said confidently. This was the only thing she was stronger than Chen Hao in. When Chen Shui began to sense, Chen Hao also carefully released a trace of undetectable soul fluctuation and began to sense the auras of the few sects in the Southern Sea Archipelago. Know yourself and know your enemy. After a period of observation, the two of them were clear about the experts they might face after entering the core of the ancient city. As long as Yu Qingfeng came into contact with someone, the two of them had to control their aura. They did not need to consider the half-step incarnation realm, because even if they encountered one, they could only hide. However, he didn't let go of any nascent soul realm cultivators in the middle stage, late stage, or even the peak of the late stage. A super genius at the pinnacle of the nascent soul stage was not someone that the two of them could match up to. However, if they were to encounter one, they would still have a chance to launch a sneak attack. You want to kill us? Then you better pray that you stay away from us. Although they couldn't fight them head-on, their powerful perception and concealment skills made them natural killers. Being forced to hide the head and show the tail was a very stifling matter. Therefore, it was impossible for him to not get some interest back. What's more, this was a chance to make a fortune. In less than a few minutes, Chun Hao and Chen Shui had already grasped the breadth of all the targets. Soon after, the two of them silently arrived at the area where the Western mainland disciples were located. Junior sister Lan Lan, junior brother Duan, you're finally here. What about Chun Hao? Is he not with you? When Xiao Lan Lan and Duan Yufei arrived among the Ling Tian sect disciples, everyone surrounded them. Zhao Yuanqing lowered his voice and asked, Nope. Senior brother Zhao, everyone, let's not talk about him first. We'll talk about it when we get back to the sect. Duan Yufei lowered his voice and said solemnly. After that, he hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Xiao Lan Lan. Lan Lan, don't look around, oh. Xiao Lan Lan quickly retracted her gaze. What's going on? Zhao Yuanqing frowned slightly and asked through voice transmission. Many people in the Southern Sea Archipelago and the Western mainland want to deal with Chun Hao. Even we can't protect him, Duan Yufei said through voice transmission at that moment. Initially, Duan Yufei and Xiao Lan Lan did not know about this at all. However, when they were about 10,000 miles away from the core area, they found out. This was because Chun Hao had borrowed 2 pairs of communication talismans from him and Xiao Lan Lan. When they invited the two of them together, Chun Hao briefly explained the reason why he did not enter the entrance with them. However, at that moment, Duan Yufei and Xiao Lan Lan did not understand how Chun Hao could hide from their eyes. F***CK, it's about to open. Chun Hao, that brat, probably won't dare to come. With such a temperament, there's nothing to fear. When the light screen began to violently tremble, Yu Qingfeng and Jian Wufei, who was sitting in the crowd but still had their eyes locked on the outside, cursed out loud and thought disdainfully in their hearts. Jian Wufei, who had comprehended the will of the Sword Dao, had notified the people in the sect to search for Chun Hao. However, she did not request for the people in the sect to kill him. She would climb back up from where she fell. Only by defeating Chun Hao with her own strength and killing him would it be in line with her will of the Sword Dao. At the same time, Chu Qing Tian of the Eastern Mainland's Yuan Gate and Gu He, who was second only to Gu Xing in the Floating Mist sect, frowned slightly. After entering the city in the sky, they had been looking for Chun Hao and Chen Shui. However, the two of them seemed to have disappeared. None of the disciples in the sect had seen them. Chu Qing Tian, Gu He, and the others had guessed that the people Yu Qingfeng was waiting for were Chun Hao and Chen Shui. After all, with Yu Qingfeng's cultivation and aura, it was very likely that he was in the same region as Chun Hao and Chen Shui. However, they cannot be sure. As such, they have been paying attention to Yu Qingfeng and the #1 expert of the Southern Sea Islands, Yi Shanshui. At this moment, when Yu Qingfeng couldn't help but mention Chun Hao's name, they were finally certain of their guesses. Just as the mysterious aura of the light screen was getting thicker and thicker, a few exclamations suddenly sounded from a corner where the eastern mainland cultivators were, attracting everyone's attention. Isn't that Chun Hao and Chen Shui? Why did they suddenly appear? I thought something had happened to them. I didn't expect them to be here already. What powerful concealment skills! The few disciples that were closest to Chun Hao and Chen Shui discussed with surprised expressions. Chun Hao and Chen Shui looked at each other and revealed a faint smile. The two of them had expected to encounter such a situation when the light screen was activated. The miraculous teleportation light pillar was still too mysterious for them. It was absolutely impossible for them to maintain the state of merging with all things in the world. F*CK. It's him. Brother Yi, Brother Han, that's Chun Hao. He's the one who killed Shangwan Yang, Han Ji, and the others. Yu Qingfeng's furious voice suddenly sounded before Chun Hao and Chen Shui's aura was released. What a beautiful woman! Yi Shanshui's eyes instantly locked on Chen Shui, who was in a blue dress. Although she was covered by a black veil, the translucent veil could not hide her beautiful little face. Killed Shangwan Yang, Han Ji, and the others? Yu Qingfeng's angry voice was transmitted into everyone's ears. All the disciples in the Southern Sea Islands who didn't know about it opened their eyes wide in shock. Who were Shangwan Yang and Han Ji? They were top geniuses who were similar to Yu Qingfeng. Almost in an instant, everyone thought of who the two words waiting for someone could be. Even the disciples from the Western continent and the Eastern continent were shocked when they heard the names of Shangwan Yang and Han Ji. Especially the disciples from the Eastern continent, they gasped in astonishment. Although they didn't know Shangwan Yang and Han Ji, they were super geniuses who ranked at the top of the test. Even such geniuses were killed by Chun Hao. What did that mean? Everyone from the three forces was surprised. However, before they could react, the dazzling light instantly enveloped everyone. Hiss, 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 hiss. More than 1,000 cultivators disappeared at the same time in the violent spatial fluctuations. Phew! The transmission this time was beyond Chun Hao's expectation. Although he had no concept of time and seemed to have lost his consciousness, the moment he walked out of the transmission, Chun Hao clearly felt that the whole transmission process was definitely more than any of the previous ones. It was probably more than 10 minutes. After letting out a long breath, Chun Hao began to look at the surrounding space. There were continuous mountains, colorful clouds, dense forests, and all kinds of strange flowers and plants. In the distance, he seemed to vaguely see a mirage-like palace. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the entire space was purer and denser than outside. Moreover, the aura of demonic beasts was stronger too. What made Chun Hao even happier was that the entire space contained a mysterious aura. No wonder it's the best place to cultivate in the Sky City. In a month, I might be able to improve my grasp of the law of heaven. Buzz! At this moment, the communication talisman that Chun Hao borrowed from Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan vibrated violently. With a smile, Chun Hao crushed the communication talisman and received the information in it. Not only could the communication talisman transmit information, but it also had a magical positioning function. Of course, the value of this kind of communication talisman was much higher than that of ordinary communication talismans. The reason why Chun Hao borrowed it was to meet up with Chen Shui. After all, in the transmission of the Sky City, even if they hugged each other, they would be separated. Whoosh, whoosh, Chun Hao and Chen Shui, who were nearly 10,000 miles apart, turned into gusts of wind after locking onto each other's direction and converged with each other at lightning speed. The ancient city area was only 100,000 miles in radius, and more than 1,000 people were scattered in it. In fact, it was just a drop in the ocean, but that was referring to ordinary people. For over 1,000 Golden Core Realm and Nascent Soul Realm cultivators, it was rather crowded, especially for Chun Hao and Chun Shui, who were besieged on all sides. They had to be extra careful. Everyone in the South Sea Archipelago, you should have seen Chun Hao and Chun Shui. If you see either of them, inform me immediately. I, Yishan Shui, will not treat you unfairly. As the leader of the South Sea Archipelago, Yishan Shui did not need Chengfin's urging this time and directly used the group transmission talisman. Second update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 294. Yishan Shui's promiscuity was well known in the Southern Sea Archipelago. Up until now, he had ruined countless beautiful girls. He even had more than 10 Dao partners. Even when he came to the Sky City this time, he had 2 beautiful Dao partners with him. Compared to him, Yu Qingfeng was not on the same level at all. Yishan Shui was tempted the moment he saw Chen Shui. How could he let go of such a beautiful woman? The Western Mainland's Heavenly River sect and people related to Jin Wufei were also looking for Chun Hao and Chen Shui. However, they were not as exaggerated as Yishan Shui. Of course, the Eastern Mainland's Chu Qingtian, Gu He, and the others were no exception. Buzz. Just when Chun Hao was flying, the communication talisman vibrated again. This made Chun Hao slightly puzzled. However, when he took out the communication talisman, he immediately understood. Duan Yufei had given him this communication talisman before he entered the Sky City. This should be a message for the Ling Tian sect disciples to gather. Chun Hao hesitated slightly, but did not break in the end. Once he did, the leader of the Ling Tian sect would know his location. Of course, he would also know the leader's location. However, Chun Hao did not know him at all. He did not even know what kind of person he was. To be safe, he did not open it. Of course, the most important thing was that Chun Hao did not have the slightest intention of seeking shelter from the Ling Tian sect. Moreover, they could not protect him anyway. In less than an hour, Chun Hao and Chun Shui, who were not far away, separated from each other. Otherwise, both of them would not be able to sense each other's presence. Soon, both of them locked onto each other's aura and gathered together. Let's go. We've been locked onto in such a short time. Let's leave this place quickly. Chun Hao said immediately when he saw Chun Shui in a blue dress. Yes. Chun Shui nodded her head with a solemn expression. Her perception was more powerful than Chun Hao's. She knew that she and Chun Hao had only released their auras for a short while, but they were locked onto by 3 auras. Moreover, they were closing in on them at a shocking speed. It had to be said that there were too many people who wanted the 2 of them dead. In this space that was only 100,000 miles wide, there were probably hundreds of people who were their enemies. Moreover, there were many experts that the 2 of them could not fight against. Chun Hao, this place is only 50,000 kilometers in radius. It's really too small, and we have too many enemies. Unless we meet someone who is alone and not that strong, we can't do anything at all. Rather than running around to avoid being hunted down, it's better to find a secluded place to cultivate. This place is undoubtedly the most suitable place for cultivation. Chun Shui said, "Indeed, our strength is still too weak. Increasing our strength is the key." It was estimated that all the disciples of the large sects were gathering here. They should also know that cultivating here was the most important thing. I believe that no one will come looking for us. Let's do that. Chun Hao responded. When Chun Hao entered this space, he already had this plan in mind. Although he would definitely be able to kill quite a few of those fellows, he would still be able to assassinate them. But other than being able to obtain some things, there was not much practical use. Rather than wasting time on such meaningless battles, it was better to use this precious 1 month to improve their own strength. Those ancient palaces, let's not go, Chun Shui said. We can't go even if we want to. There are probably not many of these palaces. It must be the places that those ninth-rank sects fought for. It's just some treasures and secret techniques. We don't want them. Let's go. Hiss. The two of them merged into the heaven and earth and quickly went into the distance. Chen Hao said it casually, but in fact, he was very depressed. If he was a nascent soul cultivator, how could he be so depressed? Strength was everything. Only the fastest way to improve one's strength was the way to go. Gone? F***CK. It's too difficult to find them with such powerful concealment skills. What a waste of energy. It's better to meet up with the people from the sects and cultivate in peace. Sensing the disappearance of Chen Hao and Chen Shui, within 200 to 300 miles, 3 masters at the peak of the nascent soul stage in 3 directions said secretly. The 3 of them were all masters of the Southern Sea Islands, and they were also the ones who received Yi Shanshui's call. Of course, they just happened to sense Chen Hao and Chen Shui's aura nearby. In such a holy place for cultivation and a place full of danger, no one was willing to waste energy on looking for people. What's more, they were very clear about how powerful Chen Hao and Chen Shui's concealment skills were. After Chen Hao and Chen Shui found a hidden cave, they carefully opened up 2 more exits from the cave and sealed all the entrances and set up layers of restrictions. After doing all this, the 2 of them entered their respective caves and immersed themselves in cultivating and comprehending without any distractions. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Chi. In the huge cave, Chen Hao had already excavated a huge space with a radius of thousands of feet and set up layers of seals and aura concealment enchantments. At this moment, Chen Hao stood in the middle of the cave and swung his sword. Stab, reverse strike, reverse chop, spin swing, sweep, side slash. Every sword was stabbed out with all his strength, and they were all the basic sword moves of the solitary sword technique. They were all fused swords. What he wanted to do was to completely fuse the solitary sword technique, platinum sky, splitting slash, sword intent, and space attribute mysteries. Every sword and every movement must be perfect and become his instinct. Not only did he need to comprehend it with his brain, but he also needed to comprehend it with his body. Only in this way could it become his instinctive reaction. The reason for this was that Chen Hao realized it when he was facing the fast sword attack of Sword Dance Fei. If he could do this at that time, why would he need to focus on catching the opponent's flaws? There was no need to waste any time on catching the opponent's moves, and he could naturally make the most accurate instinctive attack. This was the highest level of the solitary sword technique. Such a consumption was absolutely enormous. After every 9 swords, Chen Hao's energy would be exhausted. It had to be said that following the increase of his level, Chen Hao's attacks became stronger and stronger, and the consumption of energy also became greater and greater. 9 swords of fused swords was his limit. Luckily, Chen Hao had a large amount of spirit spring. The recovery time was greatly reduced. Huff! After exhausting his strength once again and exhausting all his energy in true essence, Chen Hao let out a long breath and jumped naked into the spirit spring that was 10 feet in radius and 10 feet deep. It's been 10 days, and the sword intent has only improved a little. It seems that the heavenly Tao law here has no effect on the sword intent. Only fighting can improve it. What Chen Hao wanted to improve the most was the sword intent, but in 10 days, although the fusion of the basic sword moves of the solitary sword technique was still not perfect, it had improved a lot. The true essence of the space attribute, and even the true essence of the wind attribute that Chen Hao did not cultivate, had improved a lot. There was a faint trend of a breakthrough. The density of true essence had also increased by about 10%, faintly reaching the limit of Chen Hao's half-step nascent soul stage. But the sword intent was still at the 2nd level of the sword path. It's not bad. Chen Hao slowly closed his eyes. When he recovered his true essence, it was also when he fully sensed the heavenly Tao law. In the crazy cultivation, another 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Voila! Chen Hao jumped out of the spirit spring naked. No, I must fight. Chen Hao's eyes shone with a strong fighting spirit as he gritted his teeth, and said. After 20 days of crazy cultivation, he clearly felt that his progress was getting smaller and smaller. Faintly, he had reached his limit in all aspects and entered a bottleneck state. There was not much meaning in continuing to cultivate like this. Only fighting. Hiss. After sending out a wisp of his mind, Chun Hao, dressed in a blue dress, appeared in front of him not long after. Her long hair was wet like a lotus flower emerging from the water. I've reached the bottleneck and need to fight. What about you? So fast. Chen Shui was slightly surprised. I'll accompany you. If you haven't reached your limit, you don't have to accompany me. Just wait for me here. There won't be a problem. Chen Hao said confidently. Well then, be careful, Chen Shui said after a slight hesitation. She was very clear that although her cultivation realm was higher than Chun Hao's, her true combat strength was definitely inferior to Chun Hao's at this moment. Furthermore, there was a gap. Even if he encountered a half-step incarnation realm, as long as he did not fall into an encirclement, Chun Hao should not be in danger. If you have a situation here, send a message to me immediately. After Chun Hao finished talking, he directly turned into a stream of light and disappeared in front of Chen Shui. Leaving Chen Shui and going 10,000 miles or so, Chun Hao released the aura around him without the slightest scruple. Come on, as long as it's not half-step incarnation realm, all die for me, Chun Hao said with lofty sentiments in his heart. He wanted to kill the demonic beasts and obtain the spiritual herbs. Unfortunately, 20 days had passed, and the aura of the demonic beasts seemed to be very weak. Along the way, he did not encounter any cultivators. Needless to say, most of the treasures that could be plundered had been plundered. Moreover, most of the cultivators should have found a place to cultivate and entered it. What he could look forward to now was that after someone sensed his aura, they would come over on their own. Secondly, he would go deep into the core area where the demonic beasts were extremely powerful. Lastly, he would try to enter the palace. Entering the palace was obviously not possible at this moment. If there were no accidents, it would have long been occupied by the powerful sections. Hiss! Chun Hao had been there for a full hour. As Chun Hao continued to go deeper, there were still no cultivators who came to find trouble. This made Chun Hao, who urgently needed to fight, want to take the initiative to find the hidden cultivators. But in the end, he did not do so. After all, he did not have the potential to be a pure, evil person. Just as Chun Hao was about to enter the core of this space and see a huge palace in the distance, a strange fluctuation suddenly appeared in his mind, as if it was calling out to him from the unseen world. Is it you guys? Chun Hao could not help but ask the mysterious existence and treasure hunter's sword spirit in his mind. What are we doing? Could it be my opportunity? Hearing the answers of the two fellows, Chun Hao's eyes suddenly shone with a hint of excitement. Third update. The fourth update might be a little late. Brothers and sisters who can't wait will see it tomorrow. We, Proud Heaven, are promoting it. Please give us some support, brothers and sisters. Anything is fine. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 295. That's right. This must be an opportunity that belongs to me. This is a battle of luck. Chen Shui and I have snatched the small cultivation grotto heaven and killed 6 top geniuses. Naturally, we will snatch their luck and condense it into our own. And it's all in the city in the sky. Since there is a test, how can it not be related to this palace? Chun Hao's mind spun like lightning, and he quickly confirmed his judgment. However, he did not move forward immediately. Instead, he restrained his aura and flew 1,000 miles away. He crushed the last communication charm and waited quietly. 2 hours later, Chun Shui met up with Chun Hao at the fastest speed. As Chun Hao expected, Chun Shui also felt a trace of summoning power. Boom! 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 When Chun Hao and Chun Shui appeared 100 miles away from the palace like 2 gusts of wind, huge energy explosions continuously came from the palace in the void. At this moment, the palace was 1,000 feet wide and 50 feet tall. More than 30 cultivators gathered at the gate. The leader was Yi Shan Shui, the commander of the South Sea Islands. He was in a white robe, and his eyebrows were knitted tightly. It was obvious that he was extremely angry. It had been 20 days. It was fine that he did not receive any news from Chen Hao and Chen Shui. However, he had used his absolute strength to drive away all the people from the powerful sects in the core of the ancient city. After occupying the largest palace, he could not break open the dam gate. He had not been able to enter until now. Yu Chengfeng and the other disciples of the Coiling Dragon Valley were all gathered here. More than 30 people had wasted 18 days on the gate. They tried again and again, but failed again and again. When they were exhausted, they meditated to recover and comprehend the law of heaven. When they recovered to their peak, they used their strongest, unique skills to bombard the gate. They did not delay their cultivation. Otherwise, no one would be willing to waste time like this. There is no reason, absolutely no reason. We're the most powerful sect among the three forces, and I, Yi Shan Shui, deserve to be ranked number 1. Why can't we break open the best palace? Do we still need to wait? Senior Brother Yi, we've tried everything, but the restriction on the door is too strong. We don't know what material it is made of, but it's so hard that we can't move it at all. If this goes on, we won't be able to break it. I really can't figure out who has better luck than us. One of the half-step incarnation realm experts said with a frown. His heart was also extremely depressed. To be able to enter the palace, there was a certain amount of opportunity and luck, but the most important thing was strength. As long as they were strong enough, they could just forcefully break into the palace after occupying it. Many palaces were also occupied by powerful sections. Impossible. Our strength is the strongest, and our luck is also the strongest. There is no reason why we can't open it. After persevering for so long, how could he give up now? Perhaps it was a matter of time. Keep bombarding, Yi Shan Shui said arrogantly. What should we do? When Chen Hao and Chen Shui arrived near the palace quietly, Chen Shui stared at Yi Shan Shui, Yu Chengfeng, and the others and transmitted her voice to them. When they stop attacking, we'll quietly go over and observe the situation. If we can easily break the restriction on the door, there will be no problem. If we can't, we can only avoid them. Damn it, it's actually this group of scum. Chen Hao said gloomily. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, when the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Valley began to attack the gate again, the huge golden gate suddenly erupted with a dazzling light. An extremely terrifying aura and repulsive force surged out from the gate, followed by several shrill screams. The few disciples closest to the gate actually spat out blood one by one and were sent flying. At the same time, Chen Hao and Chen Shui revealed a look of surprise at the same time. This was because although the originally faint summoning force became stronger as the two of them approached the palace, there was a limit to the growth. However, at this moment, it suddenly became 100 or 1,000 times stronger, and the two of them had an impulse to rush directly to the door. Can we go in directly? Chen Shui said in surprise. Ha! Of course. This is 2F** King awesome. This sudden change made Chen Hao burst out cursing. The gloominess in his heart was swept away. As he spoke, the summoning force became even stronger and madly attacked Chen Hao and Chen Shui's souls. At this time, even without Chen Hao's reply, Chen Shui clearly knew that she was right. Come, let's go to the door first. When I'm done, we'll go in together. Seeing that Yi Shan Shui and the others were so shocked by the strange appearance of the door that they stopped, Chen Hao said excitedly, You want to attack? Of course. Anyway, when we enter, they will definitely know that someone has occupied it. With the temperament of these people, how can they not guard it? Kill as many as we can. Okay. Hiss. The two of them were silent, but they rushed to the door as fast as they could. What's going on? Yi Shan Shui and the others were looking at the disciples who had just been seriously injured and asked with a trace of shock. One of them was a master of the half-step incarnation realm, but his face was still pale, and he was obviously seriously injured. Whoosh! Before those few disciples had the time to answer, two extremely terrifying and incomparably sharp auras suddenly erupted from the entrance. Especially one of them. The aura contained within it was so strong that even experts of the half-step incarnation realm did not dare to lower their guard. It was too sudden, and everyone had no time to react, including Yishan Shui, who reacted the fastest. They did not have time to condense too much energy, and the only thing they could do was to dodge to the side as fast as possible. Puff! Crack! Crack! In the twinkling of an eye, a sword light that seemed to contain thousands of thunderbolts pierced through the two masters of the late-stage nascent soul realm who were closest to the door. As for the other sword light, that was even more terrifying, it contained a profound mystery that made everyone feel shocked. The sword force-guided, the sword chi pulled, and the sword force swept out. It carried the terrifying power of a spatial vortex, but also contained an incomparably fierce sword intent. It was as fast as a swan, and everywhere it passed, there would be continuous screams. Even Yu Chengfeng, who was standing a few people away from the crowd, had an incomparably fast reaction, but he still couldn't avoid it. His eyes were filled with terror, and his eyes were wide open as he watched the soul-stirring sword rapidly expand in his pupils. An incomparably mournful and unwilling scream came out from Yu Qingfeng's mouth. Before his head exploded like a watermelon, he saw Chun Hao, who he wanted to kill even in his dreams, and the stunning beauty Qin Shui, who he wanted to obtain. The corners of Chun Hao's mouth curled up slightly, and his cold eyes were fixed on the last moment of his life. His divine soul was destroyed. The platinum heaven-splitting slash was the basic cultivation technique of the 3000 Great Tao 5 Elements art. The mystery it contained could directly destroy the divine soul. At Chun Hao's level, as long as he could kill someone, there would be no soul left. This was also the reason why Chun Hao directly pierced the soul palace between his eyebrows. Die for me. Yishan Shui, who had the fastest reaction, when he sensed the danger, he instantly retreated dozens of feet away. At this moment, he was extremely furious and attacked with the fastest speed. Ha ha! Wait for me to come out. Hiss, hiss! Chun Hao directly grabbed Chun Shui's small hand, and before Yishan Shui's attack arrived, they merged into the bright light screen on the door, leaving the arrogant, domineering, and complacent words outside the door. Boom! Puff! Yishan Shui's angry attack landed on the door. Without exception, even with his amazing combat strength, he was directly sent flying by the terrifying rebound force, and spat out a mouthful of blood. It's so good, so King good. Ha! After entering the palace, Chun Hao was still holding Chun Shui's small hand tightly as he laughed excitedly. How could he not feel good about killing Yu Qingfeng in front of so many powerhouses that he could not compete with? Chun Shui's mood was also very good. It was just that the excited Chun Hao held her hand tightly. Moreover, as a woman, she didn't let her vent like Chun Hao did. Moreover, in her heart, she was more or less shocked by the power of Chun Hao's sword earlier. Just as Chun Shui was struggling for a moment and was about to break free from Chun Hao's hand, Chun Hao's deafening laughter suddenly stopped. At the same time, Chun Shui felt an extremely terrifying and boundless pressure. Almost in an instant, whether it was her or Chun Hao, they were stunned and could not move at all. Puff! Puff! Both of them spat out a mouthful of blood at practically the same time. Their minds seemed to have been pierced by numerous sword lights that contained extremely terrifying and profound profundities, and their minds and souls fell into extreme pain and struggle at the same time. If it wasn't for the souls of Chun Hao and Chun Shui far exceeding an ordinary person, their souls would probably have dispersed at this instant. Chun Shui clenched her teeth tightly under extreme pain, and her pink and delicate lips were bitten to the point blood flowed out. Yet she didn't feel it at all. The pain that came from the depths of her soul had far exceeded the limits of Chun Shui's endurance. Her soul seemed to have been shattered by the terrifying sword lights, and only a trace of consciousness remained. Gradually, when Chun Shui recovered a trace of her ability to think, the pain became even more heart-wrenching. She clearly felt as if she was within the terrifying sword lights of lightning. Every single one of these sword lights tore apart space and contained profundities that Chen Shui was utterly unable to imagine. It was the profundities of the spatial attribute and lightning attribute, and it was also the sword Tao and sword insight. No, to be precise, it was the profundities of the sword Tao. This was a comprehension that Chen Shui had never touched upon. After all, she wasn't even a swordsman, nor had she comprehended sword insight. I definitely can't faint. I definitely can't faint. Chen Shui constantly reminded herself in her mind. Even though her consciousness was extremely slow, but the obsession in her heart made her understand that this was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and training. If she could endure it, then her temperament and cultivation would have an astonishing increase. If she couldn't endure it, what would the result be? Chen Shui didn't know if she would die here, but at least she knew that she wouldn't gain anything. Chen Hao and Chen Shui's situation was similar, but also different. The fourth update. Today is the fourth update. Tomorrow, I will continue to work hard in Dark Mountain. Thank you to the friends who voted for the book review. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this book, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 296. At the moment of the strange change, the sword light contained a terrifying aura that Chen Hao could not imagine. This kind of horror definitely exceeded Chen Hao's limit. Almost instantly, Chen Hao fell into extreme shock, and this kind of shock became stronger and stronger. Even though Chen Hao had a strong mind and had also been baptized by the sword light of the mysterious existence and the treasure-hunting sword spirit, he almost lost his consciousness in this kind of horror and fear. Immediately, after Chen Hao recovered a little of his ability to think, as a swordsman who had promoted his sword essence to the second heaven of sword principle, he clearly felt a terrifying sword principle will. At first, Chen Hao did not understand what kind of legendary sword principle will was at all because it would change on its own every once in a while, causing Chen Hao's remaining consciousness to change along with it, and he tasted all kinds of pain that Chen Hao had never experienced before. Time passed minute by minute. Under this kind of terrifying pressure and sword principle will, the physical body and soul of the two people were enduring an unimaginable test. Every minute and every second was as long as a century. It's the last day. Outside the palace, there were only more than 20 disciples of the coiling Dragon Valley of the South Sea Islands left. At this moment, after Yishan Shui and the others tried several times, no one dared to attack the door anymore. However, they did not leave, and all of them wanted to strangle Chen Hao to death and ravage Chen Shui to death. Especially Yishan Shui. Not only was Yu Chengfeng killed by Chen Hao right under his nose, but even the two beautiful women who came with him were killed by Chen Hao's sword. Women were his reverse scale. How could he not hate? How could he not be angry? This was a humiliation he had never suffered since his debut. At this moment, he, who was half-stepped to incarnation, and the surrounding junior brothers and sisters, all raised their auras to the extreme. They knew very well that today, Chen Hao and Chen Shui would definitely come out of the palace. Although they knew that the moment they came out might be the moment they left the Sky Castle, half a second was enough. In just a moment, he could blast Chen Hao into powder. He would not even let Chen Shui go. Since he could not get it, he could only destroy it. This was because he knew that once the Sky Castle was out, with Chen Shui's concealment skills, even he could not do anything. As time passed, Yishan Shui and the others became more and more nervous. Everyone held their breaths and circulated their true yuan to the limit, and could launch their strongest attack at any time. But suddenly, an incomparably profound fluctuation appeared in the space, and pillars of light poured down, completely enveloping everyone. However, the palace's doors were still tightly shut. How is it possible? Could it be they died in the palace? They must have died in the palace. Damn it, he let them. The moment Yishan Shui and the others disappeared from the Sky Castle, they all thought to themselves in despair. There is only one reason why he didn't come out of the palace, and that was because he died in the palace's trial. However, they did not know that thousands of miles away from the palace, two breezes that had merged with all things in the world suddenly appeared the moment the pillars of light appeared from the void. Chun Shui, who was wearing a blue dress, had a pair of beautiful eyes under the veil. She inadvertently emitted an aura that could destroy the world. If some cultivators were present at this moment, they definitely wouldn't want to do anything to Chun Shui after seeing her beautiful figure. It wasn't that they didn't want to, but they didn't dare. Even a late-stage nascent soul expert would not dare to have such thoughts, because the aura in Chun Shui's eyes was too terrifying. Although she looked extremely weak at this moment, on the other hand, Chun did not seem to have changed much apart from being weak. At least, there was almost no difference with him before he entered the palace. However, the corners of this guy's mouth curled up slightly with an indescribable smile. 10 minutes ago, Chun Hao and Qin Shui had already awoken from the terrifying pressure and their respective sword wills. At that time, regardless of whether it was their physical bodies or souls, they were extremely weak. After 10 consecutive days, not a trace of true essence was left. Moreover, it was obvious that they had suffered extremely serious injuries. Fortunately, after the pressure and sword Dao wills disappeared, the two of them were not ejected from the palace. Otherwise, they would definitely have died in the hands of Yishan Shui. However, there was only 10 minutes. Even with the help of the Spirit Spring, such serious weakness and injuries could not be completely recovered. Fortunately, when the two of them tried to use the carving technique to merge with everything in the world to break open the wall made of an unknown material, they were enveloped by two different mysterious auras. Two completely different mysterious auras directly entered the space between their eyebrows, while the other two similar mysterious auras were familiar spatial fluctuations. In an instant, the two of them were teleported hundreds of miles away from the palace. The two of them had no time to be surprised. They naturally restrained their auras and quickly left the palace. Enveloped by the pillars of light, the two of them disappeared from the Sky Castle at the same time. The moment they appeared in the Mirage Desert, the two of them saw a flash of light and directly changed into two breezes and disappeared without a trace. Let's find a place to heal first and cultivate in seclusion for a period of time. In the void, Chun Hao, who had merged with all things in the world, said to Qin Shui, "Okay, let's stay in this Mirage Desert. Those disciples probably won't stay here." Although the two of them had swallowed a large number of elixirs at this moment, they were still extremely weak and could barely maintain flight. At this moment, if they encountered a slightly stronger opponent, the two of them would not be able to resist. Moreover, the two of them had gained a lot in the palace. While their minds were still enveloped by the terrifying pressure and sword Dao wills, it was undoubtedly the best time to digest and absorb. At this moment, the two of them naturally held hands together. From the beginning of entering the palace to walking out of the palace, the two of their hands were stuck together like dog skin plaster and never separated again. Moreover, it was so natural that even Qin Shui did not realize it. 3 hours later, Chun Hao and Qin Shui were far away from the place where the Sky Castle appeared, which was a full 50,000 miles away. After confirming that it was relatively safe, the two of them dug out 200 feet deep caves on the huge sand dune and covered it tightly. They entered respectively and began to cultivate in seclusion. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. Chun Hao and Chun Shui had already recovered to their peak state, but the two of them did not walk out of the cave and were still immersed in cultivation and comprehension. Hiss! What a terrifying sword essence! Suddenly, Chun Hao, who was immersed in cultivation, sensed a powerful sword essence. Although the sword essence was not sword principle will, it contained an aura that shocked Chun Hao, who had just broken through to the third heaven of sword principle. Although the sword essence was obviously 2 levels lower than Chun Hao's and was only at the peak of the first heaven of sword principle, It seemed to have the power to destroy heaven and earth and actually contain the sword principle attribute. Could it be that she has obtained the destruction sword principle? Chen Hao opened his eyes, and a trace of shock flashed in his eyes. Even he was a little envious and jealous of him. He was not shocked that Chen Shui could emit the aura of sword principle will. After all, the terrifying pressure and sword light in the palace inherited the sword principle attribute. Especially at the last moment when the two of them came out, the mysterious aura that entered the space between their brows was a strand of pure and powerful sword principle will. Chen Shui could not emit it now because she had comprehended the sword principle will, but because she had activated the sword principle will that did not belong to her. Otherwise, it would not have appeared and disappeared instantly. Chen Hao was shocked because the sword principle attribute that Chen Shui had obtained was actually the destruction sword principle. At that time, his father was the first to speak of the destruction sword principle, so it was very likely to be the most powerful sword principle attribute, right? What about him? Until now, he had no idea what sword principle attribute he had obtained. Firstly, he had not comprehended it. Secondly, the aura of the sword principle attribute was impossible to comprehend. It seemed to be changing at all times. Every time he tried to comprehend it, it would cause Chen Hao's mood to change greatly, and he felt as if he was going crazy. It felt as if he was facing a bitch whose mood was constantly changing. After a short moment of shock, Chen Hao immersed himself in comprehension once again. F***CK. However, not long after, Chen Hao cursed impatiently. He looked like he was unable to restrain his anger, and even the true origin around his body was circulating in an extremely terrifying manner. Chen Hao woke up from his anger and was really surprised. What sword principle attribute is this? It can actually affect my state of mind? Could it be the secular sword principle? Chen Hao guessed. Chen Hao did not have a deep understanding of the sword principle attribute. He only knew the names of several sword principle attributes from his father. He did not have a deep understanding of it. The reason why he could determine Chen Shui's sword principle attribute was entirely based on the meaning of the name. It should be, only in the secular world there are emotions and desires. I'm afraid only the secular sword principle can affect the mood of a cultivator. It shouldn't be. Chen Shui could comprehend the destruction sword principle because of her space attribute and thunder attribute. But why did I obtain such a bad one? The secular sword principle could not be compared to the destruction sword principle just based on its name alone. Moreover, when his father mentioned it, it was ranked in the last 2 or 3. It doesn't matter, it's better than nothing. I can only wait until I really comprehend it and see how powerful it is. It's almost time. I can't improve much in a short period of time. Chen Hao said. After he finished speaking, his mind moved and an aura spread out and rushed to the cave where Chen Shui was. An hour later, Chen Shui came out of her cultivation state with a look of intense surprise. The aura around her was much more terrifying than 5 days ago. Moreover, this was an aura that completely belonged to her, and not the aura that remained in the palace on her when she came out. When Chen Shui came to Chen Hao's side with a trace of joy, she could not help but say, "I have sword essence." I sensed it. Congratulations, when you comprehend the sword principle attribute in your mind, you will definitely be more powerful. Chen Hao said, "It seems to be the destruction sword principle." Chen Shui's understanding of sword principle was even worse than Chen Hao's. It should be. I don't know much about these. It's almost time for us to leave. Chen Hao said, "First update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation." Chapter 297. Taishan City was the closest city to the Mirage Desert. Chen Hao and Chen Shui went to 2 different transmission arrays and waved goodbye. The Mirage Desert was not a good place for long-term closed-door training, and Chen Shui could not stay out for too long. Therefore, after making sure that both of them had recovered to their peak state and had completely consolidated their gains in the palace, they decided to go back. 2 days later, Chun Hao came to Huaxing City, the closest city to the Jiaxing sect. Huaxing City was only 40,000 miles away from the Jiaxing sect, which was not a distance at all for Chun Hao at the moment. Flying at full speed, in less than a quarter of an hour, a mountain peak that pierced the sky appeared in Chun Hao's eyes. After only half a year of experience, Chun Hao returned again, and he was already a master half a step away from the nascent soul realm. In terms of the speed of cultivation, Chun Hao seemed to be inferior to Fan Fong. However, at this moment, Chun Hao's reputation in the entire Eastern Continent cultivation world had reached a level where it was like the sun in the sky. He had vaguely surpassed the super geniuses of the top 10 ninth grade sections. Even Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and Wu Ruochen, who were half a step away from the incarnation realm, were suppressed by Chun Hao. It cannot be helped. The Sky City ranked 6th in the test. When Chun Hao and others entered the Sky City, the disciples who were eliminated in the Eastern Continent spread the news throughout the Eastern Continent. And within a few days after the end of the trial in the Sky City, the news that Chun Hao had killed several top geniuses of the South Sea Islands began to spread. It was not an exaggeration to say that his name was known in the Eastern Continent. When Chun Hao came to the protective boundary of the Jiaxing sect, with a hint of expectation, he took out the sect token. After a wave of space fluctuations, Chun Hao stepped into the Jiaxing sect. You, our senior brother Chun Hao, among the several disciples guarding the gate. When the first one saw Chun Hao, he immediately showed an extremely respectful expression and seemed to be very surprised as he asked. Yes. Chun Hao glanced at everyone and nodded slightly in response. Other than the one who asked the question, who was the leader of the inner disciples, the others were all outer disciples. Senior brother Chun Hao is back. What a powerful aura. He's probably at the half-step nascent soul realm, right? I'm a disciple of the 100 dynasties, ranking even earlier than senior martial brother Chun Hao. I really can't compare. Don't compete with me, or you'll be discouraged. Just compete with me. Brother Chun Hao is now famous in the world of cultivation. Even the disciples of the 9th grade sect can't compete with our brother Chun Hao. That's right. This is going to be fun. I wonder how senior brother Chun Hao will handle this. Who knows? As Chun Hao flew up into the air and flew towards the mountain peak he was on, several disciples behind him were discussing in low voices with extreme envy. Not a single word escaped into Chun Hao's ears. What to do? What do you mean? Chun Hao was slightly surprised. Don't tell me there's trouble as soon as I come back. Chun Hao couldn't figure out what trouble the star-picking sect could be in. At this moment, even the core disciples of the star-picking sect posed no threat to Chun Hao. What trouble could there be? Chun Hao unscrupulously released his telepathic senses. The star-picking sect, which used to be huge for Chun Hao, suddenly appeared clearly in his mind. The 3,600 mountain peaks of the star-picking sect were only a few hundred miles in radius. Chun Hao's telepathic range had now broken through 700 miles. The moment Chun Hao released his aura, the experts of the star-picking sect immediately sensed it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several figures suddenly flew up from the mountain peaks and locked onto Chun Hao in an instant. Good boy, it only took half a year to reach the half-step nascent soul stage. His aura is even more vigorous and vast. Even a late-stage nascent soul stage can't compare with him. No wonder he could kill the top genius of the South Sea Islands. Several outer court elders were shocked when they noticed that it was Chun Hao from afar. The outer elder Wu Zichuan and the inner elder, who was also the elder of imparting skills, immediately turned into streamers after seeing Chun Hao and appeared in front of Chun Hao in an instant. Chun Hao, you're finally back. When Wu Zichuan and the elder of imparting skills saw Chun Hao, it was as if they had seen their savior. Greetings, great elder, Elder Wu. Chun Hao cupped his fists and said. However, there was a faint sense of uneasiness in his heart. The words of the disciples and the two elders just now made Chun Hao certain that something must have something to do with him. Moreover, it was something that even the two elders couldn't handle. No need to be so polite. Hurry up and solve the problem in your backyard. Fortunately, you came back in time. The sect leader is not here. No matter how we interfere, we can't do anything. The elder of imparting skills said with a headache. My backyard. What's going on? Chunhao asked in surprise. Since they were talking about his backyard, Chunhao naturally thought of Hellion Wuzi, who had already arrived at the star-picking sect, and Tantai Lien, who had yet to come out of the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. However, Chunhao couldn't figure it out. According to Chunhao's estimation, Hellion Wuzi should be in the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven at this moment. Whether Tantai Lien came out or not, it was unlikely that they would meet. What could be wrong with his backyard? You probably don't know that Hellion Wuzi is already in the late nascent soul stage, right? Tantai Lien also came out 2 months ago when the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven opened. When she came out, she was already half a step away from the nascent soul stage. The next day, she triggered Heaven's punishment and stepped into the nascent soul stage. Her combat power is amazing. Cough, cough. Chunhao was embarrassed. Hellion Wuzi had already surpassed him in the secular world. This already made the arrogant Chunhao feel a little embarrassed. However, Tantai Lien, who was in the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, could actually advance to such a stage. This made Chunhao even more embarrassed. Fortunately, his combat power was not as simple as the stage itself. Otherwise, he would just find a piece of tofu and kill himself. One had to know that they were not like Xia Yuyu, who was stronger than him from the beginning. Both of them were weaker than him. Since he stepped into the cultivation world, he was the only one who surpassed others. When had he ever been surpassed? This should have been a good thing that would have shaken the entire cultivation world. However, not long after Tantai Lien stepped into the nascent soul realm, probably because of you, the two of them actually fought and Tantai Lien was defeated. The Grand Elder continued. And then Tantai Lien and Hellion Wuzi agreed to fight in 2 months. The loser will leave the star-picking sect. Great Elder said. Sigh. Although we elders, Little Ting, and the rest tried to persuade them, the two of them had already made up their minds and refused to give in to each other. It was useless no matter who said anything. Chunhao, if I'm not wrong, it must be because of you. You should quickly go back and settle it. You can't let them fight. 3 days later is the date of their agreed battle. What should I do? What should I do? Chunhao was in a dilemma. He excitedly returned with anticipation. However, the moment he returned, Chunhao felt a headache coming on. Although he had already anticipated that such a situation would occur, it came a little too quickly, a little too sharply. Moreover, according to Chunhao's understanding of the two of them, whether it was Hellion Wuzi or Tantai Lien, they shouldn't be so intense. How did it develop to such an extent? A short distance of 200 miles was originally something that Chunhao could cover in an instant. However, Chunhao's flying speed became slower and slower. He was like an ox cart crawling in the air. He was really in a dilemma. This kind of dilemma should never appear on a swordsman. A swordsman's temperament was pure and sharp. No matter what matter or problem they faced, they would go straight to the heart without the slightest hesitation. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to become a swordsman. However, Chunhao was already a swordsman and could be straightforward and efficient in other matters. However, when it came to relationships, it seemed to be a minefield for him. In the past, Chunhao's temperament was as firm as a rock. He was cold and emotionless. He had never experienced any relationship between a man and a woman. The current Chunhao, after the soul fusion, had always maintained the necessary caution. He didn't dare to carelessly touch the relationship between a man and a woman. It seemed that there was a kind of fear in the depths of his heart. However, it was still inevitable that they would meet and become entangled together. The first Hellion Wuzi, the accidental encounter with Xia Yuyu, the chance encounter with Tantai Lien. Uncontrollably, when he thought of these 3 people, Chunhao's mind naturally surfaced Chun Shui in a blue dress. His head became even bigger. Wow, Senior Chunhao. It's Senior Chunhao. Senior Chunhao is back. So handsome, so strong, so melancholy. Don't be love-struck. We are a match made in heaven. when Chun Hao's face was full of confusion and he was slowly flying in the air like an ox cart. Some disciples who were cultivating on a mountain peak one after another raised their heads to look at Chun Hao. However, at this time, Chun Hao acted as if he didn't hear anything. It was as if he had fallen into his inner demon. Cough, cough. Great Elder. It's more serious than we thought. Elder Wu and the Great Elder, who had already left, stared at Chun Hao from afar. Elder Wu said a little worriedly, "There's no other way. This is something that he has to experience. Sooner or later, he will encounter it. It's just a little too early. He can only blame his talent for being too high. His luck is too strong, and he's too handsome. Such an outstanding person. If he's not cold-blooded, his luck with women would be frighteningly strong. His aura was originally at the peak of the half-step nascent soul stage, and he would soon be able to trigger the heavenly punishment. But now it seems that it will take a long time." Elder Chuan frowned and said. However, before he finished speaking, he suddenly exclaimed, as if he had discovered something. His eyes suddenly emitted two bright lights. At the same time, Elder Wu also revealed a shocked expression. What a profound and sharp sword intent. How is this possible? With such a sharp and profound sword intent, how can he hesitate? How can he be bound by feelings? Elder Chuan murmured in shock. Half a year ago, when Chun Hao went to train, he did not comprehend sword intent at all. Moreover, the two of them did not sense any sword intent from Chun Hao at all just now. But at this moment, Chun Hao, who seemed to have fallen into his inner demons, actually naturally emitted a sharp and profound sword intent as if he did not feel it. How could the two of them not be surprised? But immediately, the two of them, even Elder Chuan, revealed a look of deep confusion, because the sword intent aura on Chun Hao's body had magically changed. Since when could the sword intent aura change? Second update. Dark Mountain, continue to work hard. Try to finish the third chapter before 12 o'clock. Brothers and sisters who can't wait can read it tomorrow. Sorry, the plot changes. I'm especially slow in editing. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 298. Chun Hao, who was immersed in thinking about how to deal with emotional issues, didn't feel anything unusual about himself at all. He was only thinking about how to deal with the relationship between Hellion Wuzi and Tantai Lien. The matter of the duel wasn't a problem. The problem was how would the two of them get along in the future? This wasn't a question of who was more important. Chun Hao didn't want to compare and couldn't compare. To think that I was a great person in my previous life. A small emotional issue has already stumped me. Sigh, the feeling of being with Chun Shui is still better. There's no need to think so much. Chun Hao couldn't help but think in his heart. During this period of time with Chun Shui, perhaps because of the relationship between the two of them, but also because they weren't biological siblings, their interactions with each other were extremely indifferent and detached. They could do whatever they wanted. Even if they intuitively felt that the relationship between them was a little beyond that of siblings, they didn't really care. Everything was natural. Whatever, let's see what's going on with them first. Thinking of this, Chun Hao tossed aside his muddled thoughts. He, who was flying like an ox cart, suddenly disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. At the same time, his aura also disappeared. Chun Hao simply didn't know and didn't care. His series of actions shocked the Elder Chuan Gong and Great Elder who were paying attention to him. A wisp of cool breeze quietly appeared on the mountain peak named after Chun Hao. As the owner of the mountain peak, Chun Hao didn't need to expend too much mental energy to easily control the situation of the entire mountain peak. What surprised Chun Hao was that Hellion Wuzi's aura was actually emitted from Tantai Lien's palace, and Tantai Lien lived in a palace far away. What's going on? Chun Hao frowned slightly. He quietly sent out 3 messages and directly entered his own palace. In a moment, Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianpain entered Chun Hao's palace with a trace of excitement. Chun Hao, senior brother Chun, you're finally back. Li Yifeng couldn't wait to say as soon as he entered the door. Who is that hellion woozy to you? It's too powerful, too domineering. Cough, cough. Chen Hao didn't expect Li Yifeng to say such a thing. Could it be that the two forces were fighting? Chen Hao felt depressed in his heart. Mother Vastra's cur, I just didn't show up when Xiao Wu and the others came over. That shouldn't be the case. What's going on? Tell me first. Chen Hao said. Yang Fan, you tell me. Yang Fan and Ni Jianping's expressions were relatively calm, far less exaggerated than Li Yifeng's. It was a small matter at first, but it turned into a big deal later on. Most importantly, it was because of you. Be specific. When Yang Fan told the story, Chen Hao was speechless. The fuse was actually Dongfang Jun and Mo Yui. Dongfang Jun was originally a troublemaker who made people feel that he deserved a beating. Chen Hao could still understand, but what made Chen Hao dumbfounded was that the blockhead Mo Yui was also involved. It turned out that after Dongfang Ting brought Hellion Wuzi and the others to Chen Hao's mountain peak, she introduced them to Yang Fan and the others and brought Hellion Wuzi to see the sect master. In the end, when Dongfang Jun and Mo Yui chose to live in the palace first, the two of them insisted that Hellion Wuzi occupy Tantai Lian's palace. The reason was simple. Tantai Lian's palace was the closest to Chen Hao's palace, and it was in the right-hand position. Although Li Yifeng, Yang Fan, and Ni Jianping knew that Hellion Wuzi and the others were Chen Hao's acquaintances through Dongfang Ting, how could they let Hellion Wuzi occupy Tantai Lian's place? After all, they had a better relationship with Tantai Lian. In addition, Dongfang Jun's words were as annoying as an idiot's. Although Yang Fan was very reserved in his words, Chen Hao knew that Li Yifeng, who could not hold his temper and was more protective of Tantai Lian, must be unhappy. In the end, it directly evolved into Dongfang Jun's arrogant provocation of Li Yifeng. How could Dongfang Jun be his opponent? But the silent Mo Yui was even more ruthless. The moment Dongfang Jun and Li Yifeng attacked, he directly drew his sword. The battle power of the two guys combined was actually unbearable for Li Yifeng. Could Yang Fan and Ni Jianping watch foolishly? Needless to say, Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun's faces were naturally bruised and swollen. It was a tragic sight. Of course, this was because Yang Fan and the others had a sense of propriety. They were not willing to seriously injure the two and just wanted to teach them a lesson. But they did not expect that the two of them actually had a desperate stance and would not stop no matter what. At this time, Hellion Wuzi, who had met the sect master, returned. How could Hellion Wuzi not care when she saw Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun being beaten up? Once she attacked, it became a tragic sight for Yang Fan and the others. They were directly suppressed by Hellion Wuzi and could not even speak. And Dongfang Jun arrogantly let Hellion Wuzi stay in Tantai Lian's palace. Then there was Tantai Lian, who came out 2 months ago. After hearing the news from Li Yifeng and the others, she was naturally incomparably furious. Who was she? She was already Chen Hao's woman. How could she endure the grievance of having her palace snatched away? At the same time that she was shocked by Hellion Wuzi's strength, Tantai Lian directly triggered the heavenly punishment. After entering the nascent soul stage, she challenged Hellion Wuzi. In the end, she did not expect that she would still lose. Just like this, the situation became more and more rigid. Now, if there was you, there would be no me. If there was me, there would be no you. Off. Damn it, I said it shouldn't be. So it's all because of you guys. After listening to Yang Fan's statement, Chen Hao heaved a sigh of relief and said, both of them have entered the 7 stars grotto heaven, right? Yes. Then what are you waiting for? Why aren't you going to train? If you don't work hard, you will be surpassed by those two guys. Cough, cough, we just came back. 3 days later is the battle between Xiaoyan and that. Hellion Wuzi. Chen Hao, senior brother Chen, you can't let Xiaoyan be wronged. Li Feng said and paused slightly. But with your current strength, can you suppress Hellion Wuzi? That woman is really too domineering, too terrifying. I really can't understand how she could advance to the late stage of the nascent soul stage when she just came to the cultivation world. You don't have to worry about this. I have my own ways. All right, all of you can go. After Chun Hao finished speaking, he directly disappeared in front of the three of them. He took the lead to walk out of his palace and went directly to Helian Wuzi's palace. Seeing Chun Hao leave, Li Yifeng glanced at Yang Fan and Ni Jianping and said, "Do you think Chun Hao can handle it? He should be able to." We are also in the middle stage of the Golden Core stage. Chun Hao is only half a step away from the nascent soul stage, but his aura is stronger than the late stage of the nascent soul stage that we have seen. At least, Chun Hao's aura is not as strong as Helian Wuzi's. Moreover, Chun Hao obtained the 6th place in the Sky City test. His opponents were all super geniuses of the Eastern continent, including those from the 9th-ranked sects. It's not something we can imagine, Ni Jianping said. After the three of them obtained the qualification to enter the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, they had all improved tremendously. However, this time, they were only in the middle stage of the Golden Core stage and did not qualify for the Inner Disciple competition. Don't worry, he can handle it. Let's go. If we don't work hard, we may really be surpassed by those two arrogant guys. Why are the people from a Jinyuan kingdom so abnormal? Let's go and train. Aren't we waiting for the results? What if? Li Yifeng said. We shouldn't care about this at all. Relationship problems should be decided by Chun Hao himself. It's not right for us to do this. I believe he should be able to handle it. Chun Hao quietly entered the palace and came to the door of the cultivation room that was tightly shut. He used his aura that was integrated with all things in the world and easily broke the restriction on the door. Like a breeze, he floated into the cultivation room. A familiar aura floated in the huge cultivation room. Helian Wuzi was dressed in a loose white training robe that was spotless. She was as cold as the moon and was like a jade guanine. She sat cross-legged and was immersed in cultivation. What kind of inheritance is this? However, when Chun Hao saw Helian Wuzi, his eyes flashed with a touch of shock. Above Helian Wuzi, who was sitting cross-legged, there was actually a faintly flickering, illusory figure. This figure was extremely similar to Helian Wuzi, but the mysterious aura it emitted was even stronger than Helian Wuzi herself. Furthermore, it was an aura that Chun Hao was completely unable to understand, the power of samsara. At this moment, the mysterious existence that did not speak easily suddenly said with a trace of surprise. At least Chun Hao had not encountered anything that could surprise the mysterious existence. The power of samsara? This is the 4th possibility that you mentioned? Chun Hao was shocked. When he knew that Helian Wuzi was in the late nascent soul stage, the mysterious existence gave Chun Hao 4 speculations. The most likely was that she had awakened the power of samsara, and now it had become a reality. That's right. If this little girl can completely control the power of samsara, she will be an extremely terrifying existence. If you've decided to make her your woman, you can impart the great samsara art of the 3,000 great ways to her when she reaches the primordial soul stage. With the power of samsara, she'll be able to cultivate with twice the result with half the effort. It's just that she's ascending too quickly in order to advance to the nascent soul stage. Otherwise, if she had steadily ascended to the nascent soul stage, her strength wouldn't be so weak. Chun Hao did not disturb Helian Wuzi. From beginning to end, he blended into all things in the world and quietly felt the power of samsara in Helian Wuzi's body. However, the current Chun Hao could not even catch a trace of the mystery contained in it. It wasn't until an hour later that Helian Wuzi let out a long sigh of relief and opened her clear, cold, and beautiful eyes. There are still 3 days before the battle with her. I really did not expect it to develop to such a situation. Isn't it just the inheritance of the phoenix? Who does she think she is? Helian Wuzi muttered to herself, and her little mouth could not help but pout. Even Chun Hao had never seen such an expression before. In fact, Helian Wuzi would only reveal such a delicate expression when she was alone. First come, first served, it should be me first. Those few people are really annoying. But if I really force her away, when Chun Hao returns, will he blame me? Forget it. At most I will fight to a draw with her. Anyway, she is not weak. In order to keep up with Chun Hao's footsteps, I have improved too quickly. Annoying fellow, I just met him and he went to train. He doesn't care about me at all. Chun Hao was a little dumbfounded. He originally wanted to show himself immediately, but after hearing Hellion Woozy's muttering, Chun Hao did not dare to show himself at this time. However, he was completely relieved in his heart. This is more like it. Third update. Today is the third update. Thank you very much for your tips and votes. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to Conceited. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 299. Xiao Wu is not a problem here. I didn't expect this girl to have a habit of talking to herself. It makes sense. She's always so cold and won't say a word for a few days. She'll suffocate to death. Even if she doesn't suffocate to death, she won't be able to speak. I'll go check on Xiao Yin again. As Chun Hao thought of this, he turned into a gust of wind and slipped out when Hellion Woozy walked out of the cultivation room. Originally, Chun Hao's direct appearance could still give Hellion Woozy a pleasant surprise. However, after eavesdropping on this little girl's inner monologue, if Chun Hao were to appear again, Hellion Woozy would probably be so embarrassed that she would be unable to show her face. In the blink of an eye, Chun Hao appeared in Tantai Lian's cultivation room silently. However, Chun Hao stood at the door and didn't dare to enter. He had no choice. The entire cultivation room was filled with terrifying flames and attacks. Obviously, Hellion Woozy was cultivating an attack unique skill. Although it was awesome to merge with everything in the world, it didn't really disappear. It just completely concealed one's aura and figure. If there was an attack, it would definitely be impossible to escape. Moreover, this state restrained all energy. If one was carelessly touched, one could be seriously injured. The blue scorching heat filled the entire space. The temperature of the flames was beyond Chun Hao's imagination. It was the form of heavenly fire and was much stronger than Chun Hao's second-level heavenly fire. Even third-level or fourth-level heavenly fire couldn't be so terrifying. No wonder she dared to fight with Xiao Wu. This heavenly nirvana fire has probably reached the 5th level and is close to the great achievement. Moreover, it has merged with the 7-star unique skill. Staring at Tantai Lian, who seemed to have turned into flames, Chun Hao was slightly shocked. Especially the flame attacks that Tantai Lian launched time and time again were completely merged with the 7-star sword finger, 7-star sword technique, 7-star footwork, and 7-star sutra. It made Chun Hao feel as if he was facing 7 Tantai Lians. Obviously, Tantai Lian had completely refined the vital essence all over her body into the vital essence of the 7-star sutra. In other words, Tantai Lian had changed her cultivation to basic inner strength. That was the only way he could unleash such power from a 7-star combination unique skill. She only came out for around 2 months. How did she cultivate the 7-star lost art to such a level? In Chun Hao's opinion, Tantai Lian should have obtained the ultimate technique after breaking through the 7th level of the 7-star sword array and walking out of the 7-star grotto heaven. With only 2 months, not to mention Tantai Lian, even Chun Hao himself wasn't confident that he could cultivate the 4 unique skill combination to such a level. But Tantai Lian did it. How could Chun Hao not be shocked? However, Chun Hao did not know that in the 7-star grotto heaven, Tantai Lian's encounter was different from his. Chun Hao relied on his understanding of array formations to break the array. However, Tantai Lian did not have a freakish ability to comprehend formations like Chun Hao. She completely relied on brute force to destroy them. Destroying and deciphering were 2 different concepts. It was also because of this that the 2 of them had different encounters in the 7-star palace. When Tantai Lien destroyed the first level of the array formation, she obtained the 7-star Lost Art. As for the later levels of the array formation, Tantai Lien relied on cultivating the 7-star Lost Art to continuously improve herself so that she could destroy it layer by layer. Looks like I'll have to change my inner force secret art. The longevity art should only be a primary Earth level secret art. After stepping into the Golden Core stage, I've already cultivated it to the highest level and have almost reached its limit. When I step into the nascent soul stage, I'll have to choose another secret art of a higher level. Seeing Tantai Lien unleash such power from the 7-star Lost Art, Chun Hao thought of himself. The longevity art had accompanied him for many years since he started cultivating it. Chun Hao had never planned to change it. That was because he knew that inner strength ultimate techniques were precious. The biggest taboo was to change it back and forth. But now, the longevity art had obviously reached his limit. Chun Hao vaguely guessed that the expert who had spread the longevity art to the secular world must be someone like Huang Qi, who had tempered his temperament in the secular world. The reason why he didn't appear later was either that he had entered the nascent soul realm and didn't want to enter the secular world, or that he had perished in heaven's punishment. And this was the most likely reason. Phew! After more than 10 minutes, Tantai Lien, who was wearing the star-picking robe, finally stopped. The flames around her slowly disappeared. She sat down cross-legged and frowned slightly. Chun Hao waited for a moment. Unfortunately, Tantai Lien didn't talk to herself like Hellion Woozy did. After retreating to the door, Chun Hao knocked on the door of the palace and sent out a wisp of thought at the same time. A moment later, Tantai Lien opened the door of the palace as fast as lightning and looked at Chun Hao in a daze. Chun Hao frowned slightly, and his expression was cold. He didn't have the slightest joy of meeting. Instead, he seemed to have something on his mind. It couldn't be helped. Chun Hao didn't have any experience in matters of the heart. Before he knew what Tantai Lien was thinking, he could only put on a cold face and give her some psychological pressure. At least let Tantai Lien understand that he was very dissatisfied with their duel and conflict. He was very unhappy and didn't want to see it. He used the carrot and stick policy to serve her. He would give her a date after a slap. He would first put her in her place. Otherwise, if she was really bound by feelings, that wouldn't be what Chun Hao wanted. You're back. Tantai Lien's little face was originally filled with surprise, but after seeing Chun Hao's expression, she suddenly felt a little uneasy. Needless to say, Chun Hao definitely knew about her and Hellion Woozy. After being trapped in the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven for more than 2 years, Chun Hao had no choice but to truly unite with her because of her. More or less, Tantai Lien had some worries, especially when she saw the domineering Hellion Woozy. This uneasiness was even more intense. Perhaps it was because of this that Tantai Lien didn't back down. She wanted to fight for her own position, but she didn't expect things to develop to this stage today. But now that she saw Chun Hao's expression, she regretted her rashness a little. Putting aside whether she could defeat Hellion Woozy, what if Chun Hao wanted to choose Hellion Woozy? You're back, Chun Hao said. As he spoke, he walked directly into the palace. After sitting down, he stared at Tantai Lien and said with a slightly questioning tone, "What's going on between the two of you?" After hearing Chun Hao's words, Tantai Lien's heart thumped. Especially Chun Hao's tone and expression, it made Tantai Lien even more uneasy. At the same time, she felt extremely wronged. She bit her lips and said, "She snatched my palace first. Am I that easy to bully?" "That's because you're not powerful enough." Chun Hao said, "Should I be bullied because I'm not powerful enough? If you don't like me, I'll leave." Tantai Lien, who already felt that Chun Hao was obviously biased, instantly teared up when she heard his words. She felt as though her heart was being cut by a knife and said impulsively, after saying that, she flicked her sleeves and turned around, cough, cough. Chun Hao didn't expect this woman to be so weak. He only said 2 sentences and she couldn't take it anymore. He didn't dare to hesitate and blocked in front of Tantai Lien. Without thinking, he said, "When did I say that I don't like you? Do I look like an irresponsible person?" What Chun Hao didn't expect was that Tantai Lian's expression became even uglier. Her delicate body trembled as she stared at Chun Hao and said, "Let me go. I don't need you to be responsible for me. You don't need to be responsible for me. You only did it to save me. To save me." Chun Hao was slightly stunned and immediately understood what was going on. F***CK. She didn't say anything, but what responsibility? Wasn't this clearly telling Tantai Lian that he had no feelings for her at all and only did it to save her? Well, Chun Hao's hands were like steel bars and iron hoops, stopping the struggling Tantai Lian. His expression finally became gentle and said, "Don't misunderstand. You should know that since I was willing to save you like that." Naturally, Chun Hao paused for a moment. Because of his character, he couldn't say anything mushy in the end. He said directly, "Anyway, it's not what you think. It's just to be responsible. Also, when I said that you're not powerful enough, I wasn't talking about bullying or being biased. I just want you to understand that everything depends on strength. When you're powerful enough, you can take it back. I promise that I won't interfere, but a duel is a duel. Who allowed you to leave the star-picking sect? It's just a small matter, and you're overturning the heavens. Why don't you have a duel to the death?" After all, Chun Hao was a smart person. Although he hadn't experienced any feelings, he found a way to deal with it as he spoke. His originally gentle voice became more and more domineering and strict. Tantai Lian gradually stopped struggling and turned her little face to one side. She bit her lip and didn't say anything. 3 days later, you two will duel. The winner will live in that palace. The loser will choose. If it's a tie, you two will live with me and fight however you want. When the winner is decided, you two will separate. Although your realm can't compare to hers, your aura is not weaker than hers. Don't say that I'm biased. The premise is that no one can kill me. No matter if it's me or you, the main focus is on cultivation. I don't want to be distracted by such a trivial matter. Chun Hao reached out and wiped away the tears on Tantai Lian's face, still speaking seriously. This guy already knew the strength of the two, especially Helian Wuzi's thoughts. Because of this, he said that if it was a tie, the two of them should live together. The two of them came to the stage more or less because of the relationship between Dongfang Jun and Li Yifeng. After they really got to know each other better and played around, it should be fine. Okay, you continue. I'll say the same thing to her again. As Chun Hao spoke, he carefully observed Tantai Lian's expression and guessed what she was thinking. After confirming that his words were effective, he spoke again. After he finished speaking, he turned and left. But smack! Ah, you bastard! Ha ha! When Chun Hao left, he actually fiercely slapped and grabbed Tantai Lian's little butt. Amidst Tantai Lian's screams and curses, he laughed and disappeared. This is also considered a carrot stick policy. It feels pretty good. After stepping out of the palace, Chun Hao couldn't help but think proudly. After successfully taking a step forward, this guy felt that the problem of relationships wasn't as scary as he imagined. Didn't he successfully transfer it to cultivation? Part 1. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 300. Helian Wuzi's cultivation room was filled with a terrifying aura. Helian Wuzi looked at Chun Hao, who was standing opposite her, and snorted coldly. Her little face that was as cold as the moon had a trace of pride. "Don't force me." Chun Hao stared at Helian Wuzi and said extremely gloomily. Even Chun Hao didn't expect that the girl who was so obedient and cute when talking to herself, which made Chun Hao feel gratified and fond of her, would come to him openly this time. When Chun Hao came looking for her with the same cold face and the same big stick from the beginning, wanting to deal with her like how he dealt with Tantai Lian, this little girl actually didn't fall for Chun Hao's tricks and directly said, "Talk after you beat me." Wasn't this a blatant provocation? Originally, when the two of them met last time, they agreed to give Helian Wuzi a chance to take revenge a year later. But obviously, after the little girl sensed Chun Hao's powerful aura, she couldn't wait any longer. He was only a half-step nascent soul, almost one realm lower, but he already had such a powerful aura. If Chun Hao was promoted to the nascent soul realm, wouldn't that be awesome? She was very clear about how amazing the improvement from a half-step nascent soul realm to the nascent soul realm was, and Chun Hao is a dignified man, an awesome character of his generation. Last time, when he didn't have any chance of winning, he had already escaped once. This time, with his amazing improvement, how could he still have the face to escape? There was only a battle, but what Chun Hao didn't expect was that the solitary sword technique, the mysteries of space, sword intent, and the true essence of the wind attribute were all used to the limit, but they still couldn't do anything to Hellion Wuzi, who was in the late nascent soul realm. All kinds of concealment couldn't escape Hellion Wuzi's senses. Not only that, Chun Hao was still faintly at a disadvantage. He was put into a difficult situation by the reincarnation power and vigorous true essence contained in Hellion Wuzi's moves, of course. The most important thing was that this little girl was slightly shameless. She'd actually utilized the essence of the martial technique that Chun Hao had passed down to her, the life-risking technique of harming oneself while harming the enemy to the extreme. Even if Chun Hao executed a despicable, shameless, and wretched move, it was utterly ineffective against this little girl. In this situation, Chun Hao's big stick policy was like a dog biting a porcupine, unable to bite down. It was impossible not to be depressed, and he had to admit that Hellion Wuzi's battle strength had already reached a rather terrifying realm, especially the reincarnation power contained within. Although it was very weak, it also increased Hellion Wuzi's battle strength by a large margin. However, the most important reason was that Chun Hao couldn't really fight with this little girl. Come, I'm not afraid. The treasure sword that Hellion Wuzi held was still the low-grade spirit weapon, the Moonlight Sword, that Chun Hao gave her. At this moment, she pointed at Chun Hao without the slightest bit of fear and spoke with a trace of complacency and provocation. However, in her heart, she was incomparably shocked by Chun Hao's strength. He was only half a step into the nascent soul realm. It's fine if I don't use my ultimate move, but if I use it, at least I'll be seriously injured. At most, I'll die. Do you really dare to take it? Who are you trying to scare? Just use it. F***. Looking at Hellion Wuzi's fearless expression, Chun Hao was so angry that he cursed in his heart. Attack! How could he attack? Chun Hao wasn't joking. After the fusion of the platinum sky-splitting slash, it was fine if he didn't use it, but if he did use it, it would be an absolute killing move. Even he couldn't control it. Why would he use it? But could he let Hellion Wuzi continue to be so arrogant? Wouldn't that turn the sky upside down? This absolutely couldn't happen. I don't believe it. I can't deal with a little girl like you. Hiss. Chun Hao gritted his teeth and said. At the same time, he directly kept the sword. His figure was like lightning, and in a flash he appeared within 5 feet of Hellion Wuzi, waving his palm out. Hellion Wuzi casually slashed out with her sword, and at the same time, she said rather proudly, "Humph, this is your ultimate move? Too weak." Chun Hao couldn't be bothered to say anything more to this little lass. In this kind of stifled state, the only thing he could do was to completely immerse his mind into the battle, using the least amount of effort to obtain the greatest reward. He had to wear this lass down until she was completely drained of all her strength. At this moment, Chun Hao was immersed in the essence of Tai Chi, using force to attack force, and turning as he wished. At the same time, he continuously tried to integrate his sword essence, wind attribute profoundness, and space attribute profoundness into it. Since a dead pig wasn't afraid of boiling water, then he would use a slow fire to boil it until it was soft. Boom, boom, boom. Gradually, Chun Hao's ability to turn something rotten into something magical was displayed once again. The use of softness to overcome strength became more and more magical. Even the stifled feeling in Chun Hao's heart disappeared. His state of mind had imperceptibly reached the state of being as kind as water, clear and not lacking in quick-wittedness. His entire person was like a spinning ball that was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. His combination of attack and defense was flawless. Although Hellion Wuzi was proud, she didn't let it go to her head. Being able to awaken the power of reincarnation, she was originally very intelligent. How could she not see Chun Hao's intention? Therefore, when Chun Hao used this strategy, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly, and she was secretly happy. The reason was very simple. Although she didn't know that she had awakened the power of reincarnation, ever since she awakened it, her breath was extremely long, and her recovery speed was even more shocking. This was her strong point. Although Chun Hao was a little abnormal in this aspect, Hellion Woozy believed that she definitely surpassed the current Chun Hao. How could she not be happy? As long as she also took it easy, the final winner would definitely be her. However, she wanted to take it easy, but Chun Hao didn't give her a chance at all. Once she relaxed a little, Chun Hao's obviously gentle attacks would become swift and fierce. Moreover, every move was shameless and aimed directly at her vital point, forcing her to use more and more energy. The stronger she was, the stronger Chun Hao would borrow, and the stronger she would have to bear. It was as if a vicious cycle had formed, and it was constantly worsening. Time passed by minute, and the entire cultivation room was filled with the flames of war and violent fluctuations. In the blink of an eye, almost an hour had passed. Hellion Woozy could clearly feel that her consumption was increasing. Fortunately, Chun Hao didn't seem to be any better. She could feel that Chun Hao's consumption was definitely not less than hers, and it might even be more. Moreover, she also gradually grasped a little of the profoundness of Chun Hao's unique skill, and it became much easier to deal with it. Therefore, she still had absolute confidence. The expression on her little face was rather proud. Hellion Woozy didn't know that Chun Hao, who was immersed in the profoundness of martial arts, was indeed incomparably shocked. One had to know that he was very clear about how abnormal his physical body's ability was, and also knew how strong his recovery ability was. However, Hellion Woozy's recovery speed in battle was even more astonishing than his. Chun Hao was certain that if he didn't rely on the profoundness of the unique skill to use his power to the extreme, the first to exhaust his energy would definitely be him, and not Hellion Woozy. After such a long time, he still couldn't take down Hellion Woozy, especially when he saw Hellion Woozy's proud little face. Chun Hao couldn't control himself and became unable to calm down again. He couldn't wait to directly push this girl onto the ground and use all his strength to spank her, but as time passed, both of them were panting like oxen, drenched in sweat, and their faces were flushed red. Obviously, they had reached their own limits. Not only was there not much true vitality left in their dantian, even their essence, energy, and spirit had reached an extremely weak state. 2 hours. The battle had lasted for a whole 2 hours. It's time to make a move. Chun Hao clenched his teeth and thought to himself, "No, I must win against him this time, or else I won't have another chance in the future. I must win, I must win." Hellion Woozy clenched her teeth. The obsession in her heart made her break through her own limits. Persevering, she stabbed out her sword and attacked Chun Hao again, aiming directly at Chun Hao's chest. However, Hellion Woozy suddenly cried out in surprise. What she didn't expect was that Chun Hao actually didn't wave his palm this time. It was as if he had exhausted all his energy and allowed her sword to stab him, without dodging or avoiding. Hiss! Immediately, Hellion Woozy didn't have time to withdraw her hand. When the tip of the sword was only half a meter away from Chun Hao's figure suddenly disappeared. At this very moment, when Chun Hao was sure that Hellion Woozy didn't have much energy left, he finally displayed the only ability that Hellion Woozy couldn't respond to, which was to merge with everything in the world. This seemed to be the only ability that he could display when he was at his limit. Originally, in this narrow space of the cultivation room, the two people's terrifying energy almost enveloped all directions. It was absolutely impossible to merge with everything in the world. In an instant, they would be exposed, and they would be in an immobile state. But now, there was no need to worry. Pa 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 pa. A nightmarish sound suddenly appeared in Hellion Woozy's ears. At the same time, what made Hellion Woozy feel ashamed and inconsolable was that Chun Hao, this shameless guy, actually displayed the ultimate skill that almost made her collapse back then when her energy was almost exhausted. Golden Snake's sticky hand. In just a moment, it entangled her tightly like a dogskin plaster. In the midst of Hellion Woozy's screams again, the two people fell to the ground with a plop. Stop, stop, stop. You scoundrel. Let's call a draw. Stop. A draw? In your dreams. It's only been 2 years and your wings have hardened? If I don't show my power, you really think I'm a sick cat? Chun Hao said arrogantly. The current him was not the him back then. In a situation where he had no energy, how could a weak and petite little girl compare to his majesty and might? Just by relying on his size, he could suppress this girl half to death, one hand unhesitatingly, shamelessly, and like a wandering viper, stimulated Hellion Woozy's sensitive areas and disturb her mind, causing her to be unable to gather the last bit of energy. The other hand, relying on the strength of his physical body, directly flipped Hellion Woozy over. Lying on the ground, he began to spank her little, but with a pa-pa-pa sound, especially when he thought of this girl's tsundere, complacent, and arrogance, which made Chun Hao invisibly spank her to his heart's content. He was in a great mood. Hellion Woozy was embarrassed and angry at the same time. At this moment, how could she still dare to let Chun Hao continue? She could only shout loudly, I admit defeat, admit defeat. I'll listen to you, okay? You scoundrel. You dare to say that I'm a scoundrel? You're hurting me. Hellion Woozy was so angry that tears came out her eyes. Both her hands were tightly struggling to cover her chest. She was embarrassed and angry. Who pinched people like this? Didn't he know that a woman's chest could not be tempered? Second update. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.